They made me serve wine at the Christmas table, like I was the hired help in my own family. 15 years ago, they threw me out with nothing but 20 quid and a bin bag full of clothes. My father said I was worthless. My mother looked away. My sister watched in silence. So I came back wearing clothes from Primark and driving a rented car. I let them think I was still that broken girl, still struggling, still beneath them. They put me on a folding chair in the corner. They gave me a plastic cup while they drank from crystal glasses. And when my sister, draped in diamonds, engaged to a billionaire, clicked her fingers and told me to pour wine for her guests, I smiled and obeyed. I moved around the table, filling glasses invisible to everyone except the actual hired staff, who looked at me with pity. They shouldn't have wasted it. Until I got to him. Lucas Grant. My sister's fiancé, the man I'd been secretly negotiating with for months. He looked up at me as I poured his wine, and I saw the exact moment he recognized me. His face went pale. His hands started to shake. The wine glass slipped from his grasp and shattered on the marble floor. Silence fell across the room. He looked at me as if he'd seen a ghost and whispered just loud enough for everyone to hear. Chairman Reed. My father's face went white. My sister's mouth fell open because they were about to find out something I'd been hiding for 15 years. The failure of a daughter they cast aside. She became the billionaire who now controlled their entire future. And tonight, they're finally going to pay for every single moment they made me feel worthless. This is the story of how I became richer than all of them put together, and how I made them beg. Stick around to the end. You won't believe what I did next. My name is Elise Turner. I'm 37 years old. I'm the CEO of a renewable energy company valued at £3.2 billion, and I haven't spoken to my family in 15 years. That's about to change. The afternoon sun slants through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my 42nd floor corner office in Canary Wharf, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany desk where I've spent most of this Tuesday reviewing quarterly projections. Solar Dynamics has just closed another record-breaking quarter. Our solar technology is now installed in over 5,000 schools across 30 counties. The Financial Times called me a disruptive force in renewable energy. Forbes estimated my net worth at £1.7 billion. None of it fills the silence in this room. I glance around my desk, immaculate, organized, entirely impersonal. No family photos in silver frames, no holiday snaps pinned to a corkboard, no coffee mug with a sentimental message. Just reports a laptop and a small succulent my assistant Jennifer bought because she said the office needed some life. The plant is thriving. I water it every Monday. It's the only living thing that depends on me. My phone hasn't rung all day, except for work calls. My calendar is packed with meetings until Friday. After that, an empty weekend. Another empty weekend. I have perfected the art of filling time without filling my life. Work is easy. Work has rules, metrics, outcomes I can control. Everything else is messy. Jennifer knocks and enters, carrying the afternoon post. Just the usual correspondence and a few personal items, she says, placing the stack on my desk. She's worked for me for 6 years and has never once asked why I have no emergency contacts other than my solicitor. I appreciate that about her. Thank you, Jennifer. That'll be all for today. She nods and leaves the door clicking softly shut behind her. I sift through the post mechanically investor updates conference invitations, a handwritten note from a scholarship recipient, thanking the Reed Turner Foundation for changing her life. That one I set aside to read more closely later. Then my hand freezes over a cream-colored envelope, expensive cardstock. My name written in a hand I haven't seen in 15 years, but would recognize anywhere. My mother's perfect, practiced cursive, Elise Turner. No Elise Reed, the professional name I use. They still think of me by my maiden name as if the last 15 years never happened. I should throw it away. I should definitely throw it away. Instead, I open it. The invitation is formal, engraved, the kind of thing you'd order from a luxury stationer on Bond Street. You are cordially invited to Christmas dinner at the Turner estate. The date is 3 weeks from now, but here's the detail that makes my jaw clench. The invitation isn't from my parents, it's from the office of Lucas Grant, on behalf of Emily Turner and Lucas Grant. My sister's fiancé's secretary sent it. Not my mother, not my father, not even Emily herself. A secretary? Even their invitation is an insult. I stare at the card, and 15 years condense into this one moment. I'm 22 again. I'm standing in our family dining room with an acceptance letter to Cambridge clutched in my trembling hands. I hear my father's voice echoing through the house. No daughter of mine is going to embarrass this family by pretending to be some kind of intellectual. Women don't need postgraduate degrees. They need to be pleasant, attractive, and useful. I can still feel the sting of the slap when I said I was going anyway. I can still see my mother's face, not shocked, not defending me, just carefully blank, as if she'd already erased me from the family portrait. And Emily, beautiful Emily, standing in the doorway with an expression I've spent 15 years trying to decipher. Was it pity, smugness, relief that she would remain the favourite daughter? My father threw £20 notes at my feet. Take it. That's all you're worth to this family. Be gone by tonight. Don't come back. I took the money. I filled a bin bag with clothes. I walked out the door at 11 p.m. and I never looked back. Only now I'm looking at a photograph tucked inside the invitation the Turner estate renovated and expanded, looking like something out of an architectural magazine. They've clearly spent money, a lot of money. I find myself wondering where it came from since my father's business was struggling when I left. I open my laptop and type, Lucas Grant, Reed Tech Energy. The results send a shiver down my spine. Lucas Grant, 37, is the CEO of Reed Tech Energy. The company was originally founded 40 years ago by Robert Reed. Robert Reed, the man who found me sleeping in a Cambridge lab at 2 a.m. during my second year working the night shift, cleaning labs to pay for food. The man who looked at my notes, sat down and taught me concepts that weren't in any textbook. The man who became the father I never had, not through grand gestures, but by just showing up week after week, teaching me that genius mattered more than birthright. Robert passed away 9 years ago, leaving me his patents and a letter that said, "Build something that makes a difference. Don't let anyone steal your future the way they stole mine." I built Solar Dynamics from those patents. I named it in part for him Solar, a portmanteau of solar and reed. Everything I am, everything I've built, traces back to the man who saw value in me when my own family saw only disappointment. And now my sister is marrying the CEO of Robert's company, the company that bears his name. I look at the engagement pictures. Lucas Grant is tall, dark-haired, with a touch of grey at the temples, handsome in a quiet, understated way. There's something in his eyes I recognize, an old hurt, carefully managed. There's a photo of him and Emily at some charity ball. She's radiant in a designer gown with diamonds at her throat. He's smiling, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. Something about him nags at me. Have we met? The feeling is persistent but vague, like trying to remember a dream. I lean back in my chair, watching the sun set over the London skyline, and I make a decision that I know is probably reckless, but feels utterly necessary. I'm going to Christmas dinner, but I'm not going as Elise Reed, the billionaire. I'm going as Elise Turner, the daughter they threw away. I'm going to let them see what they expect to see. A woman who struggled, who never quite made it, who is still seeking their approval after all these years. I'll wear clothes from Primark instead of my usual designer labels. I'll drive a rented car instead of my Tesla. I'll let them patronize me, pity me, and reveal exactly who they still are. And then when the time is right, they're going to find out what their failure of a daughter really built while they were holidaying in Europe and expanding their estate with money that I'm suddenly very curious about. I pick up my phone and text Jennifer. Clear my schedule for the week of Christmas. I'm taking a personal trip. She replies immediately. You're taking time off. Are you feeling all right? I smile at my phone. I feel like going home. Maybe it's time they faced the failure they left behind and learned what that failure built. The rental car feels alien. I'm used to the silent electric hum of my Tesla, the buttery, soft leather seats, the dashboard that looks like it belongs in a spaceship. This Honda Civic smells of artificial pine and has fabric seats with a stain on the passenger side I'm trying not to think about. But that's the point, isn't it, Elise? Turner, the struggling daughter, wouldn't drive anything better than this. I hit the M 43 hours ago, and with every mile I drive north towards Buckinghamshire, the knot in my stomach tightens. The landscape shifts from motorway monotony to something achingly familiar. Rolling hills dressed in the colours of late autumn, stone walls bordering estates that have been in the same families for generations, white church spires piercing a grey November sky. This is old England, the kind of place that prides itself on tradition, discretion, and knowing exactly where everyone fits in the social hierarchy. I used to fit at the bottom, or rather I didn't fit at all. The town of Millbrook appears around a bend, and I have to grip the steering wheel to steady myself. It looks exactly the same. The brick-fronted high street with its carefully preserved Georgian architecture, the town green with its war memorial, the old cinema with a marquee that still uses movable letters. Everything is smaller than I remember, diminished somehow, as if my memories were shot in widescreen. And the reality is just a modest market town of 8,000 people, where everyone knows everyone else's business. I drive slowly past landmarks that trigger sensory memories I didn't know I still carried. There's the library, its granite steps, polished smooth by a century of feet. I spent whole Saturdays in there, tucked away in the back corner of the science section, reading about circuits and solar cells and technologies that seemed like escape routes. The librarian, Mrs. Shaw, used to put new books aside for me. I wonder if she's still alive, still working there, still showing kindness to lonely children. I drive past the secondary school groups of teenagers loitering in the car park, their laughter echoing in the afternoon air. They lean against cars, fiddle with their phones, touch each other's arms with the casual intimacy of people who belong. I was never part of those groups. I ate my lunch in the science lab with Mr. Patterson, helping him set up demonstrations in exchange for sandwiches he claimed his wife packed too many of. I know now he was buying those sandwiches for me because he noticed I rarely ate. The diner where I worked 3 of my jobs still has the same red neon sign, Rosie's Diner established 1952. I worked the morning shift before school, the dinner shift after, and pulled double shifts at weekends, saving every penny my father didn't know existed for the university application fees he forbade. I lied to him for 2 years, telling him I was at study groups and debate practice. In reality, I was serving coffee and memorizing vocabulary for my A-levels from flashcards I kept in my apron. I don't stop at any of these places. I can't not yet. Instead, I follow the GPS to a travelodge on the edge of town. The owner, a cheerful woman in her 60s named Barbara, barely glances at my credit card before handing me the key to room 7. She doesn't recognize me. Why would she? The girl who left this town 15 years ago was invisible. I drop my bag in the room. Floral wallpaper patchwork quilt, a painting of a lighthouse, and get back in the car. There's one place I need to visit before I can face my family. Willow Creek Cemetery sits on a hill overlooking the town. Its iron gates open its paths lined with maple trees that have shed most of their leaves into carpets of rust and gold. I know exactly where to go, a path I memorized 16 years ago from a funeral where I wasn't allowed to cry because my grief might upstage Emily's performance at her debutante ball the same weekend. Grandma Rose's headstone is simple grey granite, weathered now with moss creeping into the carved letters. Rose Amelia Turner, 1935 to 2009. Beloved mother and grandmother. I kneel on the damp grass, not caring that my jeans will get stained, and place the white lilies I bought at a supermarket across the county line. Hi, Grandma, I whisper. Sorry it took me so long to come back. My grandmother was the one person in my family who looked at me and saw potential instead of disappointment. She bought me my first science kit when I was 8, slipping it to me wrapped in newspaper so my father wouldn't see. She told me stories about Marie Curie and Rosalind Franklin. She told me I had a mind that could change the world if I didn't let small people make me small. She died during my second year of university. I borrowed money I didn't have to take a bus home for the funeral, only to be told I couldn't speak at the service because I might get too emotional and detract from Emily's debutante party. I stood at the back of the church in silence while my parents delivered a eulogy for a woman they never really understood. I made it, Grandma, I say softly. I built something big. You'd be so proud. I pause. There's another bouquet on the grave, fresh roses, cream-colored, expensive. Their petals are still tight, placed here recently. My heart starts to pound. I reach for the small card tucked into the stems. The handwriting is neat, unfamiliar. She would be proud of you. I spin around, scanning the empty cemetery. Just rows of headstones and that peculiar November quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath. Who left this? Who even knows I'm here? I only decided to come back a few days ago. I haven't told anyone except Jennifer. And she doesn't know my history, doesn't know about this town or this grave. I walk over to the small maintenance shed near the entrance where the groundskeeper keeps his logbook. The door is unlocked, typical small town, and I flip through the visitor log. There, in the same neat handwriting entries for the last 6 months, the same date every month. Always roses for the grave of Rose Amelia Turner. Always anonymous. Someone has been visiting my grandmother's grave for 6 months. Someone who knew enough to start 6 months ago, right around the time Emily's engagement was announced in the society pages. Someone who suspected I might come back. I take a picture of the entries with my phone and then walk back to my grandmother's grave. I touch the cold, solid stone under my palm and make a promise. I'm going to find out the truth, Grandma. About everything, about why they want me back now. About who has been watching and waiting. I get back in the car and drive aimlessly through town until I pull up near the memorial park, where the old oak tree still stands by the playground. I'm surprised to find my feet carrying me towards it, a muscle memory from hundreds of childhood break times spent alone. The tree is huge, its trunk scarred with decades of carved initials and hearts. I run my fingers over the bark until I find them. E.T., carved when I was 12 with a borrowed pocket knife. I had just read about the space program and decided my initials meant I was destined for stars my family couldn't see. The carving is weathered, now almost smooth, surrounded by newer initials and inside jokes. Someone has carved Jake plus Sophie for Eva above my old mark. I smile in spite of myself. Life goes on. Other lonely kids find this tree and make their mark. I take out my phone and take a picture of my initials, sending the photo to myself with the caption, "You survived, you thrived, now finish what they started." As I walk back to the car, the autumn wind picks up scattering leaves across the empty playground. I glance back at the cemetery on the hill, visible from here, and I get that familiar feeling of being watched. Someone still remembers me here. Someone who knows I visited my grandmother. Someone who has been leaving flowers and messages like breadcrumbs. But who are they and what do they want? Sitting in my rental car outside the park, staring at the photo of my carved initials, I realize the memories aren't just coming back, they're demanding to be confronted. I've spent 15 years building walls against these feelings, brick by brick of achievement and detachment. But being back in this town is like water seeping through cracks I thought I'd sealed. The past insists on being remembered. I was 10 years old the first time I understood I was disposable. It was the day of our family portrait, one of those formal sessions my mother scheduled annually to project the image of the perfect Turner family. I remember standing in my bedroom that morning watching from the doorway as my mother did Emily's hair in her room across the hall. Emily was 8, already beautiful in that porcelain doll way that made strangers stop my mother in the street to compliment her jeans. My mother was curling each strand of Emily's hair individually, testing different ribbons against her bespoke dress, a pink silk and lace creation that had been ordered from a boutique in London. I looked down at my own outfit, the blue dress I'd worn for 3 previous portraits, its hem, let down twice, slightly faded from washing. My mother popped her head into my room just long enough to say, "Right, just brush your hair and let's go." At the photographer's studio, the photographer arranged us for what felt like an eternity. Emily in the center, beaming in her designer dress, our parents flanking her like proud sentinels. And me, the photographer, kept adjusting my position. "A little to the left, dear. Now just a tiny bit back. Can you take one more step back?" Each direction moved me further from the center, further from the light, until I was barely in the frame at all. A blur at the edge, while Emily shone in perfect focus. That portrait still hangs in their entrance hall. I've seen it in photos Emily posts on social media. Every time I look at it, I see the visual representation of my entire childhood. Emily in the spotlight, cherished, invested in me, barely visible, an afterthought in my own family. The inequality wasn't subtle. Emily had piano lessons twice a week with a tutor from Juilliard who drove an hour each way. She had ballet tennis etiquette classes and a clothing budget that my mother tracked in a leather-bound ledger. I got a library card and Emily's hand-me-downs, which were bewaltered to fit my different frame. When I turned 11, I asked for a science kit for my birthday, one of those beginner electronics kits that taught you to build simple circuits. It cost £17. I'd seen it in the educational supply shop and dreamed about it for months. My mother looked at me as if I'd asked for something obscene. Why would we waste money on things that won't make a difference? Men don't marry women for being clever, Elise. They marry them for being pleasant and attractive. That's what you should focus on. But I wasn't pleasant or attractive, not by their standards. I was studious, awkward, and too intense about things that didn't involve hair ribbons or party dresses. So I became invisible by choice, and that line from my mother became the rebellion I carried in silence. I would prove that cleverness could build empires. I would show them that the thing they dismissed as worthless was in fact priceless. The science kit I wanted I ended up buying with money from my first job at 14 doing a paper round before school. By then I'd already taught myself basic electronics from library books. But before that, when I was 14 and Emily was 12, something happened that crystallized exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. That year, Emily started testing boundaries, sneaking out to parties with older boys, drinking, staying out past curfew. Our parents reacted with mild disappointment and an increased allowance, as if money could substitute for discipline. One Saturday night in July, Emily climbed out her window to meet friends at a party. I heard her go. I should have stopped her, but I was tired of being her unpaid guardian. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of screaming. I ran outside to find Emily floating face down in our swimming pool, her friends scattered and panicked. Without thinking, I jumped in fully clothed and pulled her out. She wasn't breathing. I'd learned CPR from a library book just a few months earlier, memorizing it the way I memorized everything, never imagining I would need it. I did chest compressions and rescue breaths until she coughed up water and started breathing again. The ambulance came. Emily was fine, just drunk, reckless, lucky. When my parents got home from their dinner party, I expected relief, maybe even gratitude. Instead, my father cornered me in the hospital corridor. If anything had happened to Emily, it would have been your fault. You heard her leave and you did nothing. Not a thank you for saving her life. Not a you did the right thing. Just anger that Emily had been in danger at all, as if her recklessness was somehow my responsibility. My mother stood silently beside him, her face carefully blank, the same expression she wore whenever she chose not to face inconvenient truths. That night, I learned something essential. In my family, love was conditional and worth was predetermined. Emily could make catastrophic mistakes and be forgiven. I could perform actual miracles and still be found wanting. The rules were different for us because our value was different. She was the investment. I was the insurance policy. 2 years later, I was 16 and supposed to be asleep, but I'd crept downstairs for water and heard my parents talking in my father's study. The door was ajar. I stood frozen in the hallway as my father's voice carried clearly. We only need one daughter to succeed. Emily will marry well. She has the beauty and the charm. Elise is a backstop, I suppose. If Emily fails, Elise can work and help support her. My mother's reply was worse than agreement. It was casual acceptance. At least she's good for something. I stood outside that door at 16 years old and felt something inside me go cold, hard, and permanent. This wasn't neglect born of ignorance or misunderstanding. It was strategic dehumanization. I was never meant to be loved. I was meant to be used. The backup plan, the safety net, the disposable daughter who existed only to catch her sister if she fell. That night, I made a promise to myself in the dark of my bedroom. I would become so successful they would regret every moment they dismissed me. But more than that, I would prove that value isn't determined by parental investment. It's built by personal resolve and the refusal to accept another's assessment of your worth. It was on that day that I learned love in our house had a price and I couldn't afford it. But understanding something at 16 and having the courage to act on it at 22 are entirely different things. For the next 6 years, that overheard conversation lived with me. I walked through that house like a ghost present but unseen, biding my time, saving every penny, planning my escape with the methodical precision that would later make me a successful CEO. I worked 4 jobs through university at a state school they grudgingly allowed me to attend. I maintained a perfect 4.0 average, while my parents attended every one of Emily's debutante balls and charity luncheons, and I applied to the postgraduate program at Cambridge, in secret, the same way I did everything important in my life, alone in silence, expecting no one to care. The acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday in March, a full scholarship with a living stipend, and an offer to work in the renewable energy lab with Professor Shaw, whose research I'd been following for years. It was everything I had worked for, the validation that my mind was worth something, even if my family thought otherwise. I held that letter in my hands and felt for the first time in my life that someone in the world had looked at me and seen value. I made a mistake that day. I thought maybe this achievement would be enough. Maybe if I showed them proof that I was exceptional, that institutions like Cambridge wanted me, they would finally see me the way I needed to be seen. So I brought the letter to dinner. We were having roast beef. I remember that detail with strange clarity. Emily was talking about her society debut at some major event, showing my mother fabric swatches for her gown. I waited for a lull in the conversation and cleared my throat. "I have some news," I said. "I've been accepted into the postgraduate program at Cambridge full scholarship." The silence that followed was like all the air had been sucked from the room. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. My mother's face went carefully blank, that practiced neutrality I knew so well. Emily looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Then my father's face turned the color of raw meat. "You applied behind my back after I expressly forbade it." "I'm 22. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I don't need permission." He stood up so fast his chair clattered backwards. "You absolutely need permission. You applied using this family's name. This family's reputation. No daughter of mine is going to swan about as some arrogant blue stocking embarrassing us with this intellectual nonsense." Before I could respond, he snatched the letter from my hands and ripped it in two. The sound of tearing paper was deafening. I watched the pieces flutter down onto the table, landing in the gravy boat. "You will stay here," he said, his voice now cold, controlled. "You will work at the family firm doing data entry or filing or whatever is needed. You will help your sister prepare for her debutante season. You will make yourself useful for once." I looked at my mother. She was staring at her plate in silence. I looked at Emily. She was watching me with an expression I will never forget. It wasn't sympathy or solidarity, but calculation. I could almost see her mind working, weighing whether my departure would mean more attention for her, more resources, more of everything she already had in abundance. Something inside me clicked, not broke, but clicked into place like a lock turning. "No," I said. The word felt strange in my mouth. I'd never said it to my father before. "I'm going. I earned this. I worked for this. You're not taking it from me. As long as you live under my roof, you will obey my rules." He was towering over me now, and I realized with a strange detachment that I'd spent my entire life making myself small to avoid this moment. "Then I won't live under your roof." My voice was shaking, but I didn't stop. "I'm leaving." The slap came so fast I didn't see it. His open palm connected with my face with enough force to send me stumbling sideways into the china cabinet. I heard plates shatter. I felt something sharp cut my lip. The taste of blood filled my mouth. My mother gasped, but she didn't move from her chair. Emily actually took a step back, as if the violence might be contagious. I touched my lip, felt the warm blood on my fingers, and looked at my father. His face showed no regret, no shock. It was triumphant. He thought he'd won. He thought violence had settled the argument the way it always settled things in his world, through domination by making the other person smaller. But I wasn't smaller. I was sharper. He opened his wallet, pulled out two 20-pound notes, and threw them at my feet. "Take it. That's all you're worth to this family. Be gone by tonight. Don't come back. You're no longer my daughter." Those words should have destroyed me. Instead, they freed me. I bent down, picked up the money, folded it carefully, and put it in my pocket. I wiped the blood from my mouth with my napkin, placed it on the table, and said the last words I would speak in that house for 15 years. "One day you will regret this." I walked upstairs to my room. My hands were shaking, adrenaline mixing with shock. I grabbed a bin bag from under the sink and started packing clothes, toiletries, my laptop. The few books I owned that weren't from the library and my grandmother's rosary. The only family heirloom I cared about. The only thing in this house that represented unconditional love. It was 11 p.m. when I walked down the stairs for the last time. The house was silent. No one came to stop me. No one said goodbye. As I reached for the handle of the front door, I heard Emily's voice from upstairs. clear and casual. "Mum, can I have Elise's room? It has better light for my Instagram photos." That hurt more than the slap, the casualness of it. The speed with which I was being erased, my room already being reallocated before I was even off the property. I wasn't a person to them. I was a resource to be redeployed. I walked the 3 miles to the bus station, a bin bag over my shoulder, looking like a pathetic caricature of a runaway. I sat on a cold metal bench and waited for the 2:47 a.m. bus to London. The station was empty except for a cleaner mopping the floor. The fluorescent lights hummed. My lip had stopped bleeding, but my face ached. I took out my phone and started a new note. Things I will build without them. Number 1, success they can never comprehend. Number 2, a fortune they cannot claim. Number 3, proof that love is not required for greatness. I didn't cry. I had shed enough tears for that family. When the bus finally arrived, I got on, found a seat at the back, and watched my hometown disappear into the darkness. As I closed that door, I thought I was leaving the pain behind, but the pain followed me, and it morphed, and it became my fuel. The bus dropped me in London at dawn, and I walked into my new life with £40 a bin bag of my belongings and a split lip that had swollen overnight. The first year was survival in its rawest form. I found a room advertised on a campus notice board. A sofa in the living room, £300 a month, in a flat shared with 4 other students. My bed was a sagging old couch that smelled of stale pizza. My wardrobe was a cardboard box tucked behind it. I showered at the campus gym because the flat bathroom was always occupied and often disgusting. I had 3 jobs because 2 wasn't enough, just barely covered rent. Morning shift at Mike's Cafe. Washing dishes from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. My hands were raw from the industrial soap and scalding water. Afternoon shift at the university library, shelving books and helping undergraduates find sources for papers on topics I could have written myself. Night shift cleaning labs at Cambridge, mopping floors and emptying bins, while the brilliant minds who actually belonged there slept in their comfortable beds. In between, I attended my classes so exhausted I sometimes fell asleep standing up on the tube. I survived on coffee that tasted like battery acid, and whatever food I could scavenge, day-old bagels from the cafe vending machine, biscuits, instant noodles. I cooked with hot water from the library coffee machine. My classmates talked about spring break in Cancun, while I calculated whether I could afford both dinner and laundry that week. The answer was usually no. I never told anyone my story. Pride wouldn't let me. I showed up to seminars with dark circles under my eyes and participated as if I belonged, as if I wasn't counting coins for the photocopier, as if my stomach wasn't eating itself with hunger. I studied harder than everyone else because I had to. Their safety net was trust funds and family connections. Mine was the memory of my father telling me I was worth £40. I was going to prove that every penny of that insult was catastrophically wrong. For the first year, I wrote letters to my mother, 1 a month, carefully composed during quiet shifts at the library. I told her about my classes, my research, the small victories like acing an exam or understanding a complex theorem. I told her I missed her. I told her I was scared sometimes, but that I was managing. I told her things I hoped would make her proud, make her react, might unlock whatever had sealed her heart. None of them were ever answered. After 12 months of silence, I stopped writing. My second year started the way the first had ended, exhausted, hungry, and alone. I was cleaning the engineering lab at 2 a.m., mopping between the rows of workbenches, when I noticed someone had left papers spread out on a table. I should have just cleaned around them, but a page caught my eye. Solar panel efficiency calculations, advanced work. I dropped the mop and leaned closer, studying the equations. There was a mistake in the thermal coefficient assumption, small, but significant. I was so engrossed I didn't hear him approach. A voice behind me said, "Late night study session or an early start." I spun around, mortified, expecting to be fired. Instead, I found a man in his late 60s, with kind eyes and silver hair, wearing a cardigan that looked older than I was. He was holding a cup of tea and looking at me with curiosity, not anger. "I work here," I stammered. "I'm sorry, I was just reading your calculations." He smiled. "What do you think of them?" I should have lied. I should have said they looked fine. Instead, I told him the truth about the thermal coefficient. He put down his tea, pulled up a chair, and for the next hour he taught me concepts that weren't in any textbook I'd ever seen. His name was Robert Reed, and he'd come back to Cambridge to work on a personal project after retiring from the industry. That night became a routine. Robert worked late. I cleaned and studied. He never asked why I was studying during my cleaning shift. He never commented on my obvious poverty. He never made me feel like a charity case. He just showed up night after night and taught me not just technology, but how to think like an innovator. He taught me that working harder wasn't enough. You had to think differently, see problems from angles no one else had considered. Slowly, over months of late-night conversations, he shared his story. He'd founded an energy company decades ago with a partner, pioneered solar technology, built something meaningful. Then his partner betrayed him, engineered a financial crisis, and ran the company into the ground. Robert lost everything: his business, his reputation, his marriage. His son, estranged and resentful, blamed him for the family's collapse. Failure isn't falling down. Robert told me one night, his gaze distant with memory. Failure is refusing to get back up. I fell down, then I got up. That's the only difference between people who make it and people who don't. He became the father I should have had. Not through money or grand gestures, but through presence. Through showing up, through believing I was worth teaching. 3 years into our friendship, Robert called me to meet him outside our usual lab. Something in his voice put a knot in my stomach. We met in a coffee shop, and he told me he'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months, maybe less. He spent those months working with a frantic intensity, finalizing 3 patent applications for revolutionary solar panel designs he'd been developing in secret. I helped where I could, learning the technology, yes, but also the business strategy, the intellectual property law, the market positioning. He was teaching me everything, and we both knew why. A month before he died, I visited him in the hospital. He was thin and pale, but his eyes were still sharp. He handed me a folder containing the patent applications. "These are yours," he said. "Build something that makes a difference. Don't let anyone steal your future the way they stole mine." I tried to protest. I couldn't accept something so valuable, so significant. But Robert cut me off with a wave of his hand. "You've already earned it. You spent 3 years learning and improving and questioning every night. This is what inheritance should be. Knowledge passed to someone who will use it well. My son wanted nothing to do with this work. You were the one who stayed. You were the one who cared." When Robert passed away 3 weeks later, I kept my promise. I took his patents, secured a small business loan, and founded Solar Dynamics. The name honored both the solar energy and his surname, my way of ensuring his legacy lived on. I was 28 years old, twice an orphan, and about to build an empire from the ashes of 2 broken families. His legacy was about to collide with the family that destroyed it. But I didn't know that yet. That was 9 years ago. 9 years of building, expanding, and turning Robert's 3 patents into an empire he never got to see. I'm sitting in my London office now, looking at quarterly reports that show Solar Dynamics has become one of the fastest growing renewable energy companies in the country. The numbers are staggering, even to me. Sometimes a £3.2 billion valuation, 2,000 employees across 30 counties. Our solar panels are 40% more efficient than anything our competitors produce. It's all thanks to Robert's original designs, which I refined and commercialized, with an obsession that bordered on religious devotion. I work professionally under the name Elise Reed. It started as a way to honor Robert, taking his surname as if he were the father who actually mattered. But it also served a more practical purpose, anonymity, from the family who rejected me. Elise Turner disappeared from their world 15 years ago. Elise Reed built an empire they know nothing about. Forbes put me on their 30 under 40 list 3 years ago. The picture they used was professional. Polished a woman in a tailored suit, standing in front of a massive solar installation. I look nothing like the awkward girl with the split lip who walked out of Buckinghamshire with a bin bag over her shoulder. My parents have no idea. Emily has no idea. Their failure of a daughter is the woman revolutionizing British energy, installing solar technology on schools, hospitals, and government buildings. I've kept this secret deliberately, pathologically. I wanted to build something so undeniable, so grand, that when they finally discovered the truth, there would be no room to diminish it with their casual cruelty. I wanted the achievement to be a finished monument before they could try to tear down the scaffolding. And now, apparently, fate has decided it's time for the unveiling. I was reviewing merger proposals when I came across a company name that made my blood run cold: Reed Tech Energy. My hands freeze over the document. I read it again, sure I'm misunderstanding, but no. There it is on formal corporate letterhead. Reed Tech Energy, proposing a merger with Solar Dynamics. I drop the quarterly reports and start digging. Reed Tech was Robert's company, the one his partner destroyed 25 years ago, driving it into bankruptcy and shattering Robert's life, a life he spent decades trying to put back together. After the bankruptcy, the partner sold the company to new owners who ran it into the ground through mismanagement and short-sighted leadership. The company that was once a pioneer in solar technology became a case study in squandered potential. But 3 years ago, someone bought Reed Tech and has been trying to turn it around. The current CEO is Lucas Grant, 37. I scroll through his biography with a growing sense of fascination. An orphan from a young age, worked his way through business school, known in the industry as a turnaround specialist who rescues failing companies and restores them to profitability. There are photos of him at industry conferences, at charity events, always with the same carefully controlled expression. But it's his eyes that get me. There's something in them I recognize intimately, an old hurt, carefully managed. The look of someone who has learned to live with a wound that never fully healed. Then I see the engagement announcement, and the air leaves my lungs. Lucas Grant is engaged to Emily Turner. There's a picture of them at some glamorous charity event. Emily is stunning in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's car's diamonds at her throat, reflecting the camera flash. Lucas stands beside her in a tuxedo, smiling, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. They look like a magazine cover, perfect, glamorous, and utterly unbelievable as a couple in love. Emily Turner, my sister, the girl who took a step back when our father hit me, who asked for my room before I was even out the door, who watched my destruction with calculated self-interest instead of sisterly concern. I read Emily's description in the announcement, with a mixture of fury and dark amusement. Socialite and lifestyle influencer from a prominent Buckinghamshire family. She's built her entire identity on the surname I abandoned. She's using Turner as social currency, while I spent 15 years proving I never needed it. The irony is so vicious, it's almost poetic. The door to my office opens. My CFO, Margaret, enters with a look of urgency. Elise, we need to discuss the Reed Tech proposal. They're pushing for a response. Tell me everything I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Margaret sits and pulls up the documents on her tablet. Reed Tech Energy has formally proposed a merger. They bring an established distribution network across 40 counties, existing contracts with major energy providers, and brand recognition. We bring superior technology and better margins. Together, we would create a renewable energy giant that could dominate the market. The board is enthusiastic. They want your approval to proceed with negotiations. Who would I be negotiating with? Their CEO. Lucas Grant has been spearheading the turnaround. By all accounts, he's brilliant, but the company is in worse shape than they're letting on publicly. Without this merger, they will likely go bankrupt within 18 months. With it, both our companies could triple their market value. I look at the Christmas invitation still sitting on my desk, the cream-colored envelope that started all of this. The understanding hits me like a wave. They don't know my name is Elise Reed. They have no idea their rejected daughter runs Solar Dynamics. But they've somehow found out I work in renewable energy, probably through some background check or casual inquiry. They're reaching out now after 15 years of silence because they think I might have some small professional connection that could help Emily's struggling fiancé. They still see me as useful rather than valuable, a means to an end rather than a person with her own power. The insult would be devastating if it wasn't so predictable, so perfectly in character, with everything they've ever believed about my worth. I control the fate of the company that destroyed my mentor. The man who is begging for this merger is engaged to my sister, and my family has invited me to Christmas dinner, presumably in the hopes that I can put in a good word with someone at Solar Dynamics, never once imagining that I am Solar Dynamics. Margaret is watching me expectantly. So shall we proceed with preliminary discussions? I smile slowly. Yes. Set up the negotiations. I'll handle this one personally. Fate doesn't knock. It sends a merger proposal and a wedding invitation and then sits back to watch the collision. For 3 days, I do nothing but think. I sit in my office staring at 2 documents side by side on my desk, the Christmas invitation and the Reed Tech merger proposal, 2 pieces of paper that have catastrophically aligned my past and my present. I could deal with them separately, professionally decline. The invitation proceed with the merger through the proper corporate channels. Keep my personal history sealed away where it has been safely stored for 15 years. That would be the mature choice, the healthy choice. But I can't do it. There's a part of me that still carries the imprint of my father's hand on my face. Still hears the casual cruelty in Emily's voice as she asked for my room. Still feels the weight of being worth exactly 40 pounds in my family's estimation. That part of me doesn't want professional distance. It wants a reckoning, not violence, not cruelty, but something perhaps more powerful, the truth. I want them to see what they threw away. I want them to understand, viscerally and undeniably, that their judgment was catastrophically wrong. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Quinn, who I've been seeing weekly for 4 years. Because successful people are emotionally intelligent enough to deal with their trauma, asks the question I've been avoiding. Is this about proving your worth to them or to yourself? I'm sitting in her office with its soothing grey walls and abstract art, turning the question over in my mind like a puzzle piece that won't fit. Neither I say, finally, I already know my worth. The market has assigned it a very specific number with 9 zeros. I don't need their validation, and I haven't for a very long time. Then what is it about accountability? The word feels right as soon as I say it. They don't get to just move on and pretend I never existed. They don't get to reach out after 15 years of silence because now I might be useful to them. They don't get to piggyback on whatever success they think I might have without acknowledging the daughter they destroyed to get here. Dr. Quinn nods slowly. And what if they haven't changed? What if they're still the same people who valued one daughter over another? Then I'll know and I'll have closure. Either way, this ends. The decision clarifies over the next few days, hardening into something that feels like a plan. I will go to Christmas, but not as Elise Reed, CEO and billionaire. I will go as Elise Turner, the daughter they remember struggling. Apologetic, still grasping for scraps of their approval. It's not a disguise in the theatrical sense. It's more of a controlled experiment in human nature. I rent the Honda Civic from the airport, the one with fabric seats and a manual gearbox that costs £39 a day. I pack clothes I haven't worn in years. A faded cardigan jeans from Primark. A simple dress that cost less than I spend on coffee in a week. I take off my Cartier watch and replace it with a £20 Timex. I remove the understated but expensive jewelry and let my face go, without the skincare products that keep me looking younger than my 37 years. I research a plausible cover story. Customer service representative at a small tech company in London. Salary around £45,000 a year, small flat in a less fashionable borough, still paying off student loans. The details matter because I'm not just pretending to be poor. I'm playing the role of someone who never escaped the limitations they predicted for me. Someone who proved them right instead of wrong. The disguise serves a purpose beyond simple deception. If they treat this version of me with genuine warmth, with a love that isn't contingent on my bank balance or my job title, then perhaps they have evolved. Perhaps people can change and relationships can be restored. But if they treat poor Elise with the same contempt they showed 15 years ago, I will know their values are still hollow. They still measure human worth by wealth and status, and by that kind of shallow metric that makes people like them feel superior. Only after I've allowed them to reveal their true nature will I reveal mine. I will tell them that poor, struggling Elise is actually the CEO of Solar Dynamics, that I'm the woman their future son-in-law has been desperately courting for months, that their financial future rests in my hands the same way my father once held mine. And I will let them feel exactly how terrifying that power asymmetry is. I call Jennifer, my assistant, and have her clear my schedule for the week. You're taking time off. Her voice is filled with genuine concern. Are you feeling all right? Should I call a doctor? I'm fine. I just have a personal matter to attend to. There's a pause. In 6 years, you have never taken a personal day. Not once. Then it's long overdue. I look over the Reed Tech merger documents one last time. The numbers are worse than I initially thought. The company is hemorrhaging money, losing key contracts to competitors with superior technology and servicing a debt they can barely afford. Lucas Grant has bet everything on this turnaround, leveraged himself personally to keep the company afloat while he searched for a lifeline. Without this merger, Reed Tech will go bankrupt in 18 months, taking Lucas's entire fortune and professional reputation with it. Emily's future husband is drowning, and he's hoping Solar Dynamics will throw him a rope. He has no idea that the person deciding whether to save him or let him sink is his fiancée's sister, the family failure, the girl who was worth £40. I pack my bags, methodically. Simple clothes, basic toiletries, my laptop, the one concession to my CEO life, a USB stick, containing the full merger proposal, due diligence reports, and financial projections, just in case I need to prove who I am when the time comes. Before I leave my penthouse flat, I stand in front of the full-length mirror and I practice. I let my shoulders slump a little. I soften my gaze. I make my voice smaller, more uncertain. I'm just so grateful you invited me back. The words taste like ash, but they sound authentic. I've been playing the part of self-assured for so long, I'd almost forgotten how submission used to feel. The scared 22-year-old is still in there just below the surface, waiting to be called up. I take one last look around my flat, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Regent's Park. The modern art I bought because I actually like it, not to impress anyone. The built-in bookshelves overflowing with engineering textbooks and novels I've actually read. This life I built from nothing. This empire I built on £40 and the kindness of a stranger. Time to go home, I whisper to my reflection. Sometimes, to teach a lesson, you have to play the fool first. And I have always been a talented actress when survival demanded it. The sat-nav announces I've reached my destination, but I sit in the parked car for a full 10 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles are white. The Turner estate looms in front of me, transformed since I last saw it. The house I remember was large but understated old-money Buckinghamshire, trying not to be too ostentatious. This version is something else entirely expanded with new wings that dwarf the original structure. A circular drive that could accommodate a hotel's worth of vehicles' landscape lighting that makes the whole property glow like a stage set. Someone has poured a lot of money into this place, and I find myself doing the maths. My father's business was struggling 15 years ago. Where did this wealth come from? I park my rented Honda at the end of a line of luxury vehicles that collectively cost more than most houses. Range Rovers, Mercedes, S-Classes, BMW, 7 Series, a Porsche Cayenne. My little saloon looks like it's taken a wrong turn into the wrong neighborhood and is too embarrassed to leave. I take one last look at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Simple makeup hair in a low ponytail, cheap cardigan, Primark jeans. I grab the supermarket-bought pumpkin pie from the passenger seat, my contribution to a meal that probably costs more per plate than I'm pretending to earn in a week. Taking a deep breath, counting to 10, I force myself out of the car and walk to the front door. My finger hovers over the doorbell for a beat before I press it. I hear the sophisticated melodic chime from inside, then approaching footsteps. The door swings open and there she is. Emily at 35 is stunning in a way that requires significant investment, professionally coloured and styled hair. Flawless skin, thanks to regular facials and expensive creams. A designer dress that probably cost more than my fictional month's rent. She's beautiful, but there's something brittle about it. Something that looks like it might shatter under pressure. For a moment, we just stare at each other across 15 years of silence. Elise? She says, her voice bright and performative. The same tone she uses in her Instagram videos. You came. We weren't sure you would. She pulls me into a hug that lasts exactly 2 seconds. Her body barely touching mine, her perfume overwhelming. When she pulls back, the smile doesn't reach her eyes. She glances over my shoulder at my car, and I see her clock the Honda with something that looks like satisfaction. Her voice drops to an intimate whisper that is both conspiratorial and threatening. Just try not to embarrass us. Okay, Lucas's family is very important. His mother is here, and some of his business partners. Please just act normal. Not I missed you. Not I'm so glad you're here. Not even I'm sorry. Just a warning to behave lest I humiliate them by existing as I am. The message is clear. I am here on sufferance, and my very presence is already a liability they are managing. She ushers me into the house, redecorated in a style of expensive neutrality that quietly screams, "We hired a designer." The dining room is set for 12, the table gleaming with crystal china and enough cutlery to require a manual. Formal place cards in looping calligraphy mark each setting. Emily starts the introductions, my parents sitting at the center. They look older but not softer. My father's hair is completely grey. His face more lined, etched with deep furrows. My mother is still beautiful in her own way. but she won't meet my eye. There's Lucas's mother, kind eyes, elegant in silver, who smiles warmly at me. There are business partners whose names I instantly forget. Emily's high society friends who look me over as if I'm a curiosity from another social class. Then Emily gestures vaguely towards the far end of the table. "Oh, we didn't have time to make a place card for you. Just sit over there." There is a folding chair squeezed into a corner. The kind you pull out for unexpected guests or children. It doesn't match. Everyone else has upholstered carved wooden chairs. I have metal and vinyl. I sit without a word, projecting gratitude for being included at all. But I notice everything. My wine glass is plastic, while everyone else's is Waterford crystal. My plate has a chip on the rim. My cutlery is a mismatched set. These are not accidents. They are deliberate messages, small cruelties to establish hierarchy. You don't belong here. You are tolerated, not welcome. Be grateful we let you in. I let my shoulders slump. I keep my gaze mostly downcast, and I speak only when spoken to. "Thank you so much for including me," comes out of my mouth in a small apologetic tone, grateful for crumbs, the voice I haven't used in 15 years. My mother still hasn't looked at me once. During the starter, I finally allow myself to observe Lucas Grant. He's just as handsome as he is in photos. But there's a weariness in him, a deep sadness in his eyes, that the camera didn't capture. As our eyes meet across the table, his brow furrows, and he studies me with a puzzling intensity. Emily notices immediately, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "Darling. This is my sister Elise, the one I told you about. The one who went her own way." The phrase is loaded with subtext, the failure, the reject, the one who is still struggling while we thrive. Lucas nods slowly, but he doesn't stop looking at me. Have we met before? My heart stops. He knows. But his expression is one of genuine confusion, like he's trying to place a dream. "I don't think so," I say quietly. "I've been away a long time." "That's odd," he murmurs. "You just seem familiar somehow." Throughout the meal, I feel his eyes on me. Every time I look up, he's watching me with that same puzzled recognition. It unnerves me in a way I hadn't anticipated. My plan requires invisibility until I choose visibility. But Lucas is already seeing something. Then my mother raises her crystal glass. Everyone falls silent for the toast. "To family," she says, looking around the table at everyone but me, to the ones who stayed. Everyone drinks, except me. I raise my plastic cup halfway and set it back down. No one notices. I have already been written out of the story, and the toast just made it official. The conversation resumes as if I'm not there. My father boasts about vague business triumphs, a 3-week yachting trip down the Amalfi Coast. A new 40-foot boat is essential for entertaining clients. Emily shows off her 6-carat ring and the plans for a Tuscan wedding, 300 guests, imported flowers. A couture gown, every detail a weapon of status. Inevitably, the spotlight turns to me. One of Emily's friends asks with a tone of sickly sweet venom, "So, Elise, what have you been up to?" The table falls silent. I deliver my rehearsed lines with a shy duck of my head. "Customer service for a small tech company in London. Nothing exciting, just getting by." My father snorts. "Still wasting your time with computers? I told you that academic nonsense was a mistake. You should have stayed and made yourself useful." "You were right, Dad," I say faintly. "I should have listened." Everyone relaxes. The order has been restored. The failed daughter has returned to admit defeat. As the main course is served, Emily catches my eye and gestures to an empty glass. "Elise, you were always so good at serving. Would you mind pouring the wine for everyone?" The staff are busy. It's not a request. I get up, take the bottle, and make my way around the table. My father ignores me. My mother stares at her plate. When I get to Lucas, our eyes meet again. Something in his expression shifts a flicker of respect, perhaps a recognition of dignity in the face of humiliation. "Thank you," he says quietly. Sincerely, the only genuine kindness I've received all night. After dessert, Emily claps her hands, beaming. Lucas and I are moving the wedding up. 6 months instead of a year. A chorus of congratulations erupts. Emily's eyes find mine, and her smile widens. "You're invited, of course, Elise, though I'll completely understand if you can't afford to come to Tuscany. The flights and hotels are so expensive." No pressure. The table watches my reaction to the calculated put-down. "That's so kind," I respond meekly. "I'll see what I can do," my father adds magnanimously. "At least you came to support your sister, even if you couldn't contribute much. Family shows up even when they can't be much help." I think of the unsigned £2 billion merger that will save Reed Tech and by extension their entire future. And I say nothing. After dessert, the group moves to the living room. I try to slip away, but Emily catches my wrist. "Don't be rude. Stay for coffee." So I sit in the corner with a mismatched cup, while the men posture and the women size each other up. Lucas steps out onto the terrace to take a tense phone call. His replies clipped and short, then he freezes. His face drains of colour. He stares at his screen, then slowly raises his eyes to meet mine. The recognition is total now. He stands abruptly. "Excuse me, I need to check something." Emily follows him into the study. A crash, raised voices, then the door bursts open. Lucas walks straight towards me and stops in front of my chair. "Chairman Turner," he says, his voice loud. "Elise Turner." "No, Elise Reed Turner." The room falls completely silent. Pointedly, he holds up his phone. "I just received a notification that our merger proposal with Solar Dynamics has been approved and signed by the chairman. Elise Reed." He looks at me, putting the pieces together in real time. "You, Elise Reed, the CEO we've been negotiating with for 3 months. The woman who holds the future of Reed Tech in her hands. You've been sitting here all night letting us think." My father's brandy glass slips from his hand and shatters on the rug. Lucas's voice is low, but every word carries. "You're not poor, are you? You're the one who decides if we're saved." I rise slowly, setting down my coffee cup with deliberate care, and let the mask of submission fall away. "Yes," I say, my voice no longer small. "I am Elise Reed, CEO of Solar Dynamics." I place my phone on the coffee table with the Forbes article open. Elise Reed, the solar revolutionary. The picture is the real me. Tailored suit, confident, a billionaire. My mother lets out a choked gasp. Emily snatches the phone, scrolling her face a mask of horror as she reads the facts no one can deny. "I am Elise Turner," I say. And my voice fills the room with the authority I use in board meetings. I use Reed professionally to honor the man who became my father after you threw me out. I built Solar Dynamics from his patents and 15 years of work. And yes, Lucas, I am the one who will decide if Reed Tech survives. I take a step towards my father, no longer making myself small. "My worth is considerably more than the £40 you estimated. I wonder if you'd like to know exactly how much more. My personal net worth is approximately £1.7 billion. My company just closed a £300 million funding round. I employ 2,000 people. Yes, Dad. I made myself useful." My mother begins to weep. I can't tell if it's from shock, shame, or the sudden realization of what she's lost. Emily's expression is different. Not tears, but a rapid mental recalibration. I can almost see her influencer brain working, trying to figure out how to spin this revelation, how to position herself in relation to her billionaire sister. Elise. If you had just told us, Emily begins. I told you I say my laugh harsh. I told you that I took the scholarship you forbade and succeeded, that I built a company from the ground up after you threw me out with a bin bag, that I became everything you said I never would be. When exactly was I supposed to mention that? In the 12 letters I sent that first year that you never answered. The room is completely frozen. Lucas is still standing with his phone in his hand. Emily is clutching mine. My parents look like they're trying to reconcile two incompatible realities. The hired caterers are still in the room, and the older one, who'd given me a sympathetic nod earlier, is now openly grinning. Lucas sinks heavily into the nearest chair, his head in his hands. When he looks up, his expression is complex. The merger, he says quietly. You've been sitting on our proposal for 3 months, knowing exactly who we were, who Emily was to you. Yes, I confirm. I've known for a month that my sister is engaged to the CEO of Reed Tech. I also know that your company was founded by Robert Reed, the man who saved my life after my own family destroyed it. The irony is, as you can imagine, exquisite. Emily finally finds her voice, and it's sharp, laced with defensive anger. So you came here to gloat, to humiliate us in front of everyone. I turn to face her fully, and for the first time tonight, I let genuine emotion show in my voice. No, Emily. I came here to see if anything had changed. If perhaps after 15 years you had become people who could value someone for who they are, not what they can do for you. I gesture around the room. But within an hour of my arrival, you had me serving wine like a maid and sitting in a folding chair in the corner with a plastic cup while you drank from crystal. I look at each of them in turn. My father, his face still red. My mother, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. Emily, her perfectly manicured hand, still clutching my phone. I didn't come here to prove a point. You did that for me. You proved that 15 years has changed nothing. You still measure human worth by wealth status and submission. And now you're learning what that has cost you. I walk to the entrance hall and retrieve my coat from the cupboard. They follow me, a desperate parade, suddenly grasping for words they should have said 15 years ago. My father opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. Emily grabs my arm. Elise, wait. We can talk about this. I gently but firmly remove her hand from my sleeve. We just did, 15 years too late, but we talked. Now I have a merger to review purely on its business merits, of course. I pause at the door and look back at them one last time. Oh, and Emily, good luck with the wedding. Tuscany is lovely in the spring. I've been 3 times. The casual mention of European travel, something I supposedly couldn't afford, lands like the final punctuation on a sentence they never saw coming. For the first time in my life, my father is speechless, just the slow dawning of understanding of what he threw away. I drive back to the hotel, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, adrenaline flooding my system like I've just run a marathon. The look on my father's face as I left shocked confusion, the first cracks in his certainty, keeps replaying in my mind. I park the rental car and sit in the darkness for a long moment trying to process what just happened. 15 years of planning and the reveal took less than 5 minutes to detonate. Inside my little room with its floral wallpaper and creaking floorboards, I know sleep is impossible. My mind is racing thoughts, colliding like particles in an accelerator. I open my laptop and pull up files I've been collecting for years, documents I've studied so many times I have them memorized. It's time to face the full truth of what connects my past to my present. Robert Reed founded Reed Tech Energy 40 years ago with a partner named Thomas Turner, my father. The company was initially successful, genuinely innovative, pioneering solar technology at a time when most people considered renewable energy a pipe dream. For 15 years, they built something significant together. Then 25 years ago, it all fell apart. According to the court records I obtained through means I'd rather not discuss, my father accused Robert of financial mismanagement. He filed a lawsuit alleging Robert had misappropriated funds, made unauthorized investments, and hidden losses from the board. The case went to court. Robert lost. The company went bankrupt. Robert lost his business, his reputation, and his marriage. His wife divorced him and gained sole custody of their son, along with a restraining order preventing Robert from having any contact. My father walked away from the disaster, legally unscathed. His name cleared, his fortune intact. But I've spent years digging beyond the official records. I found the truth my father thought he'd buried. The charges were false, all of them. Robert was innocent. My father engineered the financial crisis, created fake documents, and destroyed his partner in a calculated act of betrayal to gain full control of the company. Except the company ended up failing anyway under his mismanagement. Within 3 years, he sold off what was left to new owners and moved on to other ventures. He destroyed Robert Reed's life for nothing. Lucas, I need to talk to you. Please, not about business. About everything else. I should say no. I should maintain a professional distance, keep the lines between my personal history and the corporate negotiations clear. But I hear something in his voice that sounds like he's about to break, and I remember what it felt like to be alone on that precipice. There's a diner off the M40, I say. Murph's. Open 24 hours. I'll be there in 15 minutes. When I walk into the fluorescent-lit interior of Murph's diner, Lucas is already there, sitting in a corner booth in front of a cup of coffee that has clearly gone cold and remains untouched. He looks like he's aged 10 years since dinner. His tie is loose, his hair is disheveled from running his hands through it, and his eyes have the peculiar exhaustion of someone whose reality has been completely rearranged. He stands when I approach, a gesture of respect that strikes me because it's something no one in my family did all night. I slide into the booth opposite him. For a long moment, neither of us says a word. A weary waitress appears, pours me a coffee I don't want, and disappears back into the kitchen. I didn't know, Lucas says finally, about any of it. Emily told me you'd had a hard time after you left. She said you'd made bad choices, rejected the family's help, burned bridges. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She's my fiancée. But tonight, watching you serve wine with that look on your face like you were serving some kind of penance, I started to question everything. I wrapped my hands around the warm coffee mug, needing something to do with them. What do you want to know? Everything. The truth. The real you. Not the version Emily built, or the CEO persona, just the truth. So I tell him. Not everything, but enough. The inequality of my childhood, the violence of my departure, the years of struggle and building and refusing to give up. He listens without interrupting, and I watch him process each piece of information, rearranging his understanding of the family he nearly married into. When I finish, he's silent for a long time. Then he says, I need to tell you something about that night, 15 years ago, the night you left. My heart starts to beat faster, though I don't know why. My mum died when I was 21, he begins. Cancer. It took 2 years and it cost everything we had despite the insurance. My dad had already passed away when I was 12, so I was alone, completely alone. I dropped out of business school to work and pay off the medical bills that kept coming even after she was gone. I was grieving and lost, and I couldn't see a point to any of it. He looks at me directly now, his eyes revealing something I'm starting to recognize. One night, I ended up at a bus station. I don't even remember deciding to go there. It was 2:47 in the morning. I was sitting on a bench trying to decide if I had the courage to get on a bus and just disappear when I saw a young woman. She was crying, holding a bin bag, and she had blood on her lip. Everyone else in the station was ignoring her, looking away, as if her pain was contagious. I hold my breath. I remember that night. I remember the stranger. I offered her a tissue. Lucas continues, his voice soft with the memory. We sat together and talked for about 20 minutes. She told me she'd just lost everything. I told her I felt the same way. We talked about starting over, about whether it was possible to build something from nothing. Neither of us asked for names. We just existed in that moment together, two people at rock bottom, reminding each other we weren't completely alone. "It was you," I whisper, the recognition hitting me like a wave. "You were the person who sat with me that night." He nods. "I've been trying to place you all evening. Something in your voice, your eyes. And then when you were serving the wine with that look on your face, like you were somewhere far away, it all clicked. It's you, the woman who gave me a reason to get up." My hands are shaking now. That random stranger in the bus station. That brief moment of human kindness that kept me from completely falling apart was Lucas, the man now engaged to my sister, the CEO, whose company's fate is in my hands. "I'm not in love with Emily," he says abruptly. "I have never been in love with Emily. This engagement is a business transaction masquerading as a romance. I should stop him, maintain professional boundaries, but I need to hear this. 6 months ago, Reed Tech was failing. I'd gone into personal debt, trying to save it, and bankruptcy was imminent. Your father made me a proposal, marry Emily, and he would invest £10 million to keep the company afloat. His laugh is bitter. Except now I know that £10 million doesn't exist. He was planning to con me the same way he conned Robert Reed." "Why would you agree to that?" I ask, though I think I already know the answer. 400 people work for Reed Tech, 400 families who depend on those wages. I couldn't let them all lose everything because I was too proud to make a deal with the devil. He looks at me with raw sincerity. But the woman I wished I'd met again 15 years ago, the one I've thought about more than I should admit, is you. It was always you. The diner's fluorescent lights hum above us. A lorry rumbles past on the motorway. The waitress refills our coffee without being asked, and I sit across from Lucas Grant. Understanding that fate isn't just about revenge or justice or business. Sometimes it's about two broken people who sat on a bench together in the dark and gave each other a reason to survive. "We could have met any other way," he says quietly. "But then I might not have seen who you really are, someone who turned pain into power, just like you promised you would that night." I leave the diner at 1 a.m., my head spinning. Lucas's revelation about the fake £10 million investment won't leave my mind. My father was in financial trouble 15 years ago, yet the house has been completely renovated. Emily lives a life of leisure, and somehow they're promising capital they shouldn't have. Something is wrong. Back at the hotel, I call Margaret, my CFO. She answers on the second ring despite the hour. "I need a financial investigation." I say no preamble. Thomas Turner of Millbrook, Buckinghamshire. Everything. Assets, liabilities, income sources, credit. I need it yesterday. How deep? As deep as it takes to find the truth. 48 hours later, I'm sitting in a Starbucks 2 towns over when Margaret sends me the encrypted file. With every page I read, my stomach turns. My father isn't just struggling, he's drowning. £8 million in debt to various creditors. The family estate is mortgaged beyond its value. Emily's credit cards are maxed out. The lifestyle they're projecting is built entirely on borrowed money they have no way of repaying. And the £10 million investment Lucas is counting on doesn't exist. It never did. It's just a promissory note, a piece of paper with no money behind it. My father has played Lucas the same way he played Robert Reed 25 years ago. Only this time the con is even more calculated. Once Emily and Lucas are married, they'll claim partial ownership of Reed Tech through marital assets, force a sale, and use whatever's left to pay off their debts. Lucas would lose everything. The 400 employees would lose their jobs, and my family would walk away with what they could carry. I close my laptop and call Emily. We need to talk in person, just you and me. We meet at a coffee shop in the next town over where no one knows us. Emily arrives wearing oversized sunglasses. Despite the cloudy day, her designer handbag probably worth more than she has in the bank. She sits opposite me, spine straight, ready for a fight. I slide a folder across the table. Your father's financial records, all of them. She doesn't open it. I don't know what you're talking about. That £10 million doesn't exist. The investment Lucas is counting on is a fantasy. You're being played the same way Dad played Robert Reed. As soon as you're married, you're going to claim ownership of Reed Tech and force a sale to cover your family's debts. Her face pales, but she tries to maintain the facade. That's ridiculous. We would never do that. Don't I say my voice sharp? I have the bank statements, the loan documents, the mortgage records. I know everything. The only question is what you're going to do about it. Emily's carefully constructed mask shatters, but instead of tears or apologies, what emerges is rage, pure, bitter, and vicious. You think you're better than me? She hisses, leaning forward. You got to leave. You got to escape this family and build your perfect billionaire life while I was stuck here. Do you have any idea what it's like to be the perfect daughter? Every choice made for me, every move calculated for maximum social value. My entire existence staged for their approval. I start to respond, but she cuts me off. You were neglected, Elise, but I was smothered. Every meal was monitored, every outfit chosen, every friend vetted, every word I said in public was rehearsed. At least you got to be yourself, even if they didn't value it. I never got to find out who I was underneath all their expectations. For the first time, I see my sister clearly not as the golden child who had everything, but as another kind of victim. She was molded and managed and hollowed out until nothing authentic was left. You could have left too, I say quietly. No, I couldn't. Her voice breaks. You don't understand. I'm not smart like you. I don't have skills they couldn't exploit. Beauty and submissiveness were my only currency. I never learned how to do anything else. And now I'm 35, and that currency is depreciating fast. I'm terrified of what happens when I'm no longer useful. The coffee shop buzzes with the normal life of other people. Emily takes off her sunglasses, and I see she's been crying her makeup, failing to conceal the exhaustion and desperation. You have a choice, I tell her. Call off the engagement. Tell Lucas the truth about the fake investment. Help me prove you're capable of honesty. Or do nothing, and I will expose everything. Lucas will leave you either way, but at least one path allows you to keep a shred of dignity. Emily stares into her untouched latte tears, now streaming down her cheeks, ruining her carefully applied makeup. If I tell him the truth, I still end up with nothing. At least if I go through with the wedding, maybe I have a chance. A chance at what, I ask. At maybe learning to love a man you're actively deceiving at being someone's wife, instead of just a decorative object they parade for photos. She looks at me, her face streaked with mascara, looking more real than I have ever seen her. So what should I do? What would you do if you were me? It's the first time in her life Emily has ever asked me for advice. The first acknowledgement that maybe the failed sister knows something the favorite daughter doesn't. I look her in the eye, and tell her the truth. I would burn it all down and build again from the ashes. But that takes courage, Emily, and I don't know if you have any left. 2 days after my confrontation with Emily, I'm packing my bags to leave Millbrook when there's a soft knock on my hotel room door. I'm not expecting anyone. For a paranoid moment, I wonder if it's my father come to threaten me or plead. But when I open the door, my mother is standing in the hallway alone, looking smaller and more fragile than I've ever seen her. She's wearing a simple dress, no makeup, her hair unstyled. She looks like someone who has finally stopped performing. "May I come in?" Her voice trembles. I hesitate, every instinct telling me to protect myself. But something in her defeated, vulnerable posture makes me step aside. She walks in slowly, clutching her handbag with both hands, as if it's the only thing holding her upright. We sit on opposite ends of the small room, the silence stretching between us like 15 years of unsaid words. Finally, she reaches into her bag and pulls out a stack of time-yellowed envelopes tied with a faded blue ribbon. I recognize my own handwriting on the top one. My letters, the ones I sent that first year, the ones that were never answered. "I kept them," she says softly. "All 12 of them, every one you sent. I never wrote back, but I kept them. I read them over and over until I had them memorized. I wanted to write back, to tell you I was proud to ask you to come home, but I couldn't." "Why not?" My voice comes out sharper than I intended, all the old anger bubbling up. Her hands shake as she unties the ribbon. "Because he forbade it, and because I was scared." Before I can respond, she does something that takes my breath away. She sets the letters down, and slowly, deliberately, she rolls up the sleeve of her left arm. The skin is a roadmap of scars, thin, white lines, some decades old and faded, others more recent and still pink. There are dozens of them, a map of violence written on her flesh. "Your father has been a difficult man for 30 years, she says, her voice steady now, as if she has rehearsed this. "It started before you were born. The first time he hit me, I was 6 months pregnant with you. He apologized, brought me flowers, swore it would never happen again. It happened again 3 days later, and then it just became part of our lives. Not constant. He would go for months being kind, almost loving, but the violence always came back. I feel like I've been punched. Mum, why didn't you leave?" Her laugh is bitter and broken, and go where with what money I was 24 when I married him, trained only to be decorative, to host dinner parties and smile at the right people. He made sure I stayed that way. No bank account in my own name, no credit cards, no education. He gave me an allowance like a child and monitored every penny. Tears are streaming down her face now, breaking through the careful neutrality she's maintained for so long. "When you sent me those letters telling me about your 3 jobs and your determination and your small victories, kid, I wanted so badly to help. I wanted to send you money to visit you, to tell you I was proud. But the one time I mentioned your name out loud, he went into your old room and destroyed everything, ripped up your childhood photos, burned your schoolwork. He said if I ever contacted you, he would make sure you knew it was my fault you were cast out, that he would tell you I was the one who wanted you gone." "That's not true," I whisper. But even as I say it, I realize I don't know what's true anymore. I believed him because I had seen what he was capable of, and I was a coward. I chose my own safety over my daughter's well-being. That is the truth I have to live with. She reaches into her bag again and pulls out a small metal box. Inside is a piece of paper burned at the edges, yellowed and creased from handling. One of my letters, or what's left of it. Most of it is destroyed, but one line is still legible in my younger handwriting. "I forgive you, Mum. He tried to burn all your letters when I mentioned you," she explains. I managed to save this piece from the fireplace, just this one scrap. I've kept it in my shoe for 15 years. Every day when I walk, I've felt it there, reminding me that you forgave me, even when I couldn't forgive myself. I stare at the burned paper, my own words, offering a forgiveness I don't even remember writing. When you came to dinner, she continues, when I didn't greet you, didn't look at you, it wasn't because I didn't care. It was because if I had looked at you, if I had spoken to you, I would have broken down right there and confessed everything. And I was terrified of what he would do afterwards when everyone was gone, and it was just the two of us. I don't know what to feel. Rage at the waste grief for the mother I could have had, and surprisingly compassion for this woman who spent 30 years being slowly destroyed by someone she should have been able to trust. I can't undo the past, she says, looking at me directly for the first time. I can't give you back your childhood, or my presence when you needed it, but I can tell you the truth. I was weak, and you were strong, and I am so sorry you had to be. She asks me if I can ever forgive her, and I realize that weakness has its own kind of suffering, and that strength sometimes means forgiving what seems unforgivable. The news outlets had a field day with the dinner. I gave them permission, signed the releases, made sure everything was legal and documented. Within a week, my father's world crumbles with the precision of a controlled demolition. Business partners sever ties. The country club revokes his membership. Old friends cross the street to avoid him. Creditors call in their loans. The man who built his identity on control and domination suddenly controls nothing and dominates no one. He tries to fight back, at first issuing rambling statements, claiming I manipulated the situation, that the dinner was a setup, that he is the real victim. But every protest only makes it worse. The court of public opinion has delivered its verdict, and this time it sticks. His company files for bankruptcy. Employees who worked for him for decades resign in droves, some posting scathing farewell messages about the toxic culture they endured. The collapse is total, public, and humiliating. It's everything I ever wanted, but watching it happen doesn't feel like victory. It feels like witnessing a slow-motion avalanche of wasted potential, like watching a building burn. A building that could have been beautiful if the foundations hadn't been poisoned from the start. 2 weeks after the dinner, my assistant Jennifer patches a call through to my office. Your father is here in the lobby. Security wants to know if they should remove him or if you'll see him. Every instinct screams to refuse, but curiosity, or maybe something else, wins out. Send him up. When the lift doors open, I barely recognize him. He looks like he's aged a decade in 2 weeks. His expensive suit is crumpled. His tie is askew. His posture is defeated. He looks around my office. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the view of London, the proof of everything he told me I could never achieve. And his face is a battleground of regret, envy, and grief. He only sits when I gesture to the chair in front of my desk. We sit in silence until I decide I'm done making things easy for him. I'm not here to ask for money for myself, he says, finally, his voice raspy. I know I have no right to ask you for anything but my former employees. People who worked for me for 20, 30 years, they're facing unemployment because of choices I made. They don't deserve to suffer for my mistakes. It's the first time I've ever heard him use the word mistake to describe himself. The first time I've heard him take responsibility for anything. The first time I've heard him prioritize someone else's well-being over his own. Why should I help them, I ask? Keeping my voice neutral. You shouldn't. But maybe you will because you're better than I ever was. He runs a hand through his grey hair. I need to tell you something about Robert Reed, about what really happened. I lean back and wait. Robert wasn't just my partner, he was my best friend. We built Reed Tech together from nothing, We had a dream of changing the world. For 15 years, we were like brothers. His voice cracks, but I was always measuring myself against him. He was brilliant in a way I wasn't. When journalists interviewed us, they quoted him. When we presented at conferences, people remembered his ideas. I ran the company, but he created the innovations, and I couldn't stand it. So I destroyed him. I engineered the financial crisis. I falsified documents, and I betrayed my best friend because my ego couldn't handle being second best. He looks at me directly. The betrayal wasn't about money. It was about ego, pure and simple. And then you spent the rest of your life destroying anyone who reminded you of him, I say quietly. He nods. Including you. You had his brilliance, his integrity, his ability to create instead of just manage. Every time I looked at you, I heard him and I hated you for it. The confession is like a physical blow. All those years of cruelty, it was never about me. It was about his own inadequacy reflected back at him. The worst part, he whispers, is that Robert forgave me. Years later, I ran into him at a conference. He said he understood how insecurity could poison a friendship. He offered to help me rebuild to work together again. I was too proud to accept. I turned him down. Tears are streaming down his face now. Now he's gone, and I've become the very thing I accused him of. A failure, a man who destroyed more than he built. We sit in silence while London hums outside the windows. Inside this office, a man confronts the ruins of his choices. "You're the only Turner with a soul left," he says. "And you got it from the man I destroyed." 3 days later, Margaret calls with news that makes my blood run cold. Thomas Turner has filed a lawsuit against Solar Dynamics, claiming the core technology behind our patents was conceived during his partnership with Robert Reed 40 years ago. It's preposterous. The patents are decades later, and I have meticulous records proving every innovation was the result of Robert's independent work and my own research. But the lawsuit isn't designed to win. It's designed to force a settlement and freeze our operations. My board wants to crush him to counter-sue to file criminal charges for perjury. They're right, we have the proof. But I think back to Robert's letter. Mercy can be the sharpest blade. Mercy isn't weakness. It's the ultimate show of strength. I call my legal team, present the evidence of perjury to the judge, get the case dismissed, but do not file criminal charges. There's a long silence on the line. Elise. He tried to destroy your company. I know what he tried to do, and I am choosing not to become him in response. I make one more call to the administrator handling my father's bankruptcy. I want to buy Turner Enterprises for fair market value enough to clear his debts and provide a modest pension fund. But there are conditions. The conditions are non-negotiable. The company will be renamed Reed Turner Works in honor of both founders. My father must issue a public apology to the memory of Robert Reed. He must spend a year volunteering with a domestic abuse accountability program for men. I will hire 50 of his former employees at Solar Dynamics, offering career transition assistance to the rest. When the proposal reaches him, I imagine his face, the humiliation of being saved by the daughter he tried to destroy, the requirement to publicly admit to every failure, but also the relief of a path forward that doesn't end in prison or destitution. He accepts within 48 hours. The business press calls it the most elegant corporate takeover in history. I call it a transformation. And somewhere I think Robert Reed is smiling. The public reacts with confusion. The headlines scream, "Billionaire shows mercy to abusive father." Some praise my compassion. Others call me naive, saying I'm setting a dangerous precedent, that I should have prosecuted him to the full extent of the law. Opinion pieces debate whether successful women are held to a different standard of vengeance than men. I don't care. I didn't do it for public approval or to prove a point. I did it for myself, to prove I could break the cycle of cruelty that defined my family for generations, to demonstrate that strength isn't about the ability to destroy. It's about the wisdom to choose restraint. Lucas calls me after the announcement. That took more courage than crushing him would have. Or maybe it was just easier. I reply. I tell him revenge is exhausting. Mercy lets me move on. The moment I spared my father, I realized something. I had finally overcome him not by becoming more powerful, but by becoming more human. While I choose mercy for my father, the internet chooses destruction for Emily. After her recorded confession at the dinner admitting she knew about the investment fraud, her carefully constructed influencer life implodes with brutal efficiency. Within 48 hours, every brand she partners with has dropped her. Cosmetics companies, fashion labels, luxury goods all issue identical statements about a misalignment of values and terminate their partnerships immediately. Her Instagram follower count, which once topped 800,000, plummets by the thousands daily. The comments become virulent in the way only anonymous mobs can be. Scammer, fraud, poor little rich girl. You tried to trap a good man. Emily tries to do damage control with an apology video. I watched it once. It was painful. She's clearly reading from a script, her eyes darting off camera, the words full of justification instead of genuine accountability. I made mistakes, but I was under a lot of pressure. My family had expectations I couldn't meet. I hope people can understand the complexity of my situation. The video goes viral, but not in the way she hoped. It becomes a meme, the epitome of a performative non-apology. The media picks up the story, the fall of Emily Turner when pretty isn't enough. Think pieces analyze influencer culture, the shallowness of building an identity on appearance alone, and the difference between curation and authenticity. Emily becomes a cautionary tale, the before picture, in an article about how to live an honest life. Then she makes a decision that reveals how little she has learned. In a desperate bid to change the narrative, she releases private emails between Lucas and me, messages exchanged during and after the merger negotiations, framing them as proof of a betrayal. My sister pretended to be poor, seduced my fiancé, and destroyed my family for revenge. But the strategy backfires so completely it's almost painful to watch. The emails actually make me look better. They show me offering Lucas honest business advice about Reed Tech's operations. Professional discussions about merger terms, supporting him through difficult decisions, maintaining clear boundaries. And crucially, they include messages where Lucas confesses he never loved Emily, that the engagement was a financial transaction he accepted under duress to save his employees. The most damaging piece to Emily's narrative. The emails explicitly reference the night Lucas and I met 15 years ago at that bus station, long before Emily even knew he existed. Lucas wrote, "I've spent 15 years thinking about the woman who reminded me life was worth living. I never imagined it would be you." The public turns on Emily even harder. The comments are merciless. She tried to trap him in a loveless marriage, and now she's mad he got away. Imagine being so entitled you think someone owes you a relationship. She didn't lose him. She never had him. I don't respond publicly. I don't have to. The truth is speaking louder than any statement I could craft. 3 weeks after it all falls apart, my phone rings at 3 a.m. Unknown number, but something makes me answer. Elise. Emily's voice is hoarse, slurred with alcohol and tears. "I need to talk to you." "Emily, it's 3 a.m. Are you all right?" No, I'm not all right. I have nothing. Do you understand nothing?" She's sobbing now, the words tumbling out. No career. No fiancé. No money, no future. I'm 35 years old. And I don't know how to do anything but be pretty. And I'm not even that anymore. Have you seen the photos they're using? They find the worst angles, the moments when I'm not performing. I'm becoming invisible. Despite everything, a pang of compassion strikes me. This is what our parents created. A woman with no internal resources, no authentic self, no skills beyond performance. Emily, you can rebuild. Can I? Her laugh is bitter and broken. Rebuild what? Do you know what the worst part is? I'm not even crying because I lost Lucas. I never loved Lucas. I barely knew him. I was just terrified of being alone, of being nothing. So I was willing to trap him in a marriage neither of us wanted. What does that make me? I stay silent, letting her answer her own question. It makes me exactly what they made me, a beautiful shell empty on the inside. You were right when you said I needed courage. I don't have any. I never developed any because I never had to. Everything was handed to me as long as I looked the part and said the right things and never questioned anything. You can still develop it now, I say gently. Can I? I'm 35 with no degree, no work experience, no skills besides taking a good photo. The only currency I ever had was beauty and submissiveness, and both are depreciating fast. I'm terrified, Elise. I'm terrified of what comes next. I hear the raw honesty in her voice. The first time she's spoken without performance or calculation. For the first time, Emily sees herself clearly, and the reflection horrifies her. She's not crying for what she's lost, but for what she never truly had. A self that existed beyond the approval of others. 3 weeks pass in a whirlwind of resolutions and restructurings. The Reed Tech merger moves forward under new terms that honor Robert's original vision. My family has accepted the conditions I set. My father has started therapy. Emily is working with a therapist to find her identity beyond performance. My mother is volunteering at a domestic abuse shelter. The media has moved on to new scandals. My company's stock is at an all-time high. Everything should feel complete. But instead, I feel adrift, like a ship that has reached port, but doesn't know how to drop anchor. It's Sunday morning, when I remember something my mother said during her confession in the hotel room. She visits my grandmother's grave every Sunday. I haven't been back to Willow Creek Cemetery since the first day I returned to town, when I found the mysterious roses and the unsigned card. I understand who left them now, but I haven't had a chance to say a proper goodbye to either of them. I stop at a florist and buy 2 bouquets white lilies for Grandma Rose, her favourite, and white roses for Robert, the same kind my mother had been leaving. The morning is crisp and clear autumn giving way to winter. The trees in the cemetery are mostly bare now. I find my grandmother's grave easily. Muscle memory guides my steps. I kneel on the cold grass and arrange the lilies carefully at the base of the headstone. Rose Amelia Turner, 1935 to 2009. Beloved mother and grandmother. Hi, Grandma, I whisper. Sorry I stayed away so long. I thought coming back would hurt too much, but I discovered staying away hurt more. I tell her about solar dynamics, about the 2,000 people who have jobs because of the technology she encouraged me to pursue when I was 8. I tell her about the scholarship program, about the kids we're helping, who remind me so much of myself. You were right about everything. You told me my mind could change the world. I didn't believe you then, but I'm trying to prove you right now. The wind whispers through the bare branches above us. I let myself sit there for a while, feeling the connection to the one person from my childhood who saw me clearly and loved what she saw. Finally, I stand and walk to the other side of the cemetery where Robert is buried. His headstone is simple, just like him. No pretense, just the truth. Robert James Reed. Teacher, inventor, friend. I'm approaching with my bouquet of roses when I realize I'm not alone. My mother is standing by the grave, holding her own white roses. She's dressed simply, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looks like someone who has finally stopped hiding. She turns at the sound of my footsteps, and for a moment, we just look at each other across the grave of the man who connected us in ways we're only now beginning to understand. I come every Sunday, she says softly. I have for 6 years, ever since I found out who he was, what your father did to him. I wanted to apologize to him even if he can't hear me. I felt it was important to say the words out loud to someone, even if it was just his headstone. She kneels and places her roses carefully by the headstone, arranging them with the same care she once devoted to Emily's hair before family photos. I was the one who left the flowers on your grandmother's grave too. When I heard about Emily's engagement to Lucas Grant, I started researching Reed Tech, trying to understand the company. That's when I discovered the connection to Robert Reed. I found out what your father had done, and I thought maybe one day you would come back. I wanted you to see the flowers and know that someone still remembered you, still thought of you. I didn't have the courage to contact you directly, but I needed you to know you weren't forgotten. Tears are streaming down my face, and this time I don't try to stop them. They're not from grief, but from something more complex, a recognition that people contain contradictions, that my mother was both victim and accomplice, coward and faithful in her own flawed way. I forgive you, I say quietly, kneeling beside her, not because you've earned it, but because I deserve to let go, and maybe because holding on to the grudge was keeping me from fully living. We place our flowers together, white lilies and white roses, creating a small garden of memory at the base of Robert's headstone. For a few moments, we are just two women grieving the men who shaped us, one by blood, the other by choice, both essential to who we became. My mother reaches into her handbag and pulls out an old sealed envelope. My name is written on it in Robert's neat handwriting. For Elise, if she ever comes. The cemetery groundskeeper gave this to me last month, she explains. Robert left it in his will, specific instructions. It was to be held for 10 years after his death, and then given to you if you ever visited his grave. The groundskeeper tracked me down because I come here every week. I've been carrying it with me ever since, hoping you would come. My hands shake as I take the envelope. The paper is thick, expensive, the kind Robert would use for important documents. I carefully break the seal and unfold the letter inside. His handwriting brings him back so vividly I can almost hear his voice reading the words. Dearest Elise, if you are reading this, it means 10 years have passed since my death, and you have come to visit my grave. It means you remembered me, which is all any teacher can ever hope for. By now you have probably met your father and learned of our shared history. Perhaps you are angry with me for not telling you, for not warning you about who he was, but I did not tell you because I did not want you to carry my burdens or my bitterness. Your path was your own to walk, not mine to direct. I wanted you to build your future free from the weight of my past. Here is what I learned too late, but I hope you learned early. Mercy can be the sharpest blade. Not mercy as weakness or naive forgiveness, but mercy as a deliberate choice. When you have power over someone who hurt you, and you choose not to destroy them, that is when you transcend the cycle of pain. That is when you become something they could never be free. Free from the need for revenge, free from propagating their poison, free to build instead of destroy. Build something beautiful, Elise. Not for revenge, not for validation, but because beautiful things deserve to exist in the world. Because creation is the ultimate answer to destruction. Because every solar panel you install, every person you employ, every life you touch, is a rejection of everything your father stands for. And remember this. My dear, you were never poor. Not when you were sleeping on that sofa. Not when you were cleaning my lab. Not when you had only £40 in your pocket. You were always rich in the things that matter: intelligence, integrity, determination, and the ability to dream beyond your circumstances. Those are the only forms of wealth that can't be taken from you. I am proud of you. I was proud of you then, and I am proud of you now, wherever you are, whatever you have built. Thank you for giving an old man a reason to hope that the future can be kinder than the past. With love and faith, Robert. I read the letter twice, then a third time, letting his words sink into the places in my heart that still ached. My mother sits in silence beside me, giving me the space to feel whatever I need to feel. I came to the grave seeking closure, but Robert has given me something else: permission to stop fighting and start living. Robert's letter stays with me for days, folded carefully in my wallet, where I can feel its weight. Permission to stop fighting and start living. Those words echo in my mind during meetings, during quiet evenings in my flat, during moments when I catch myself bracing for battles that no longer need to be fought. I'm trying to learn what it's like to live without armor. A week after visiting the graves, my solicitor calls me with what he describes as probably nothing but strange enough to mention. I'm reviewing merger documents when his call comes through. We're running full background checks on the ownership history of Reed Tech for the final merger paperwork, he explains. Standard due diligence. Something odd has come up regarding Lucas Grant. His birth name was Lucas Reed. He legally changed it at 25. The room seems to tilt. I set down my pen carefully, buying myself a moment to process. Reed. I repeat, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. That's right. Lucas Reed became Lucas Grant in 2013. The court records show it was a standard name change. No explanation required beyond personal preference. I'm mentioning it because of the Reed Tech Robert Reed connection. It's probably just a coincidence. But given everything that's come to light about your family's history with the company, I thought you should know. After I hang up the phone, I sit motionless in my office chair, watching the lights of London begin to sparkle as the afternoon gives way to evening. Lucas Reed Roberts' surname. The pieces begin to click into place with the inevitability of falling dominoes. Robert had mentioned an estranged son in passing years ago when I asked if he had family. A son, he'd said, his voice carefully neutral. But we haven't spoken in many years. It is my greatest failure that I let him believe lies about who I was. Lucas told me his father died when he was young, but Robert only passed away 9 years ago in 2016 when Lucas would have been 28. What happened between them? Why does Lucas believe his father died decades earlier? I spend the next 2 days digging through records I probably shouldn't have access to. But money and determination can buy almost anything. I find Robert's medical records from his final illness, pancreatic cancer stage, 6 months from diagnosis to death. There's a note in the hospital file written by Robert himself while he was still lucid. Do not contact my son, Lucas. He believes I abandoned him, and it is better that he continue to believe that. Do not burden him with a deathbed reconciliation. Let him remember me as someone who failed him, not as someone who tried and was prevented. But prevented by what? Digging deeper, I find the divorce records from 1999. 25 years ago, filed shortly after Robert's bankruptcy. His wife, Lucas's mother, filed for divorce, citing financial irresponsibility and endangering the family. The court granted her full custody of 12-year-old Lucas, along with a restraining order preventing Robert from having any contact with his son. The restraining order cited concerns about Robert's instability and inability to provide a secure environment. I read between the lines of the legalese and see the real story. Robert's partner ruined him financially. His wife, terrified and furious at their sudden poverty, left him and used the court system to cut him out of his son's life completely. Robert could have fought it. The restraining order wasn't based on violence or abuse, only financial circumstances. But he chose not to. He let Lucas go because he believed his son deserved better than a bankrupt, reputationally destroyed father. I have to tell Lucas. He deserves to know the truth about his father. We meet at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village, the kind of place with checked tablecloths and candles in wine bottles, intimate enough for difficult conversations. Lucas arrives looking tired but hopeful, and I realize with a jolt that somewhere in the last few weeks, his presence has become something I look forward to instead of brace for. We order wine neither of us drinks, and food neither of us eats. Finally, I tell him what I've discovered. Your birth name was Lucas Reed, I begin. You legally changed it when you were 25. His face remains cautiously unreadable. Yes. After my mother died, I didn't want to carry his name anymore. Lucas. Robert Reed didn't die when you were 12. Yes, he did in a car accident. My mother told me. He didn't die. My voice is soft but firm. He lost everything in a bankruptcy engineered by my father. Your mother left him and got a restraining order preventing him from contacting you. He died 9 years ago in 2016 from pancreatic cancer. I was with him. He left me his patents, his knowledge, his legacy. Lucas Robert was my mentor. The man who saved my life, who taught me everything, who gave me the tools to build solar dynamics. That was your father. I watch his face cycle through a series of emotions too complex to name. First disbelief, then a flicker of hope, then anger, and finally something that looks like grief at last allowed to surface. That's impossible, he whispers, but his voice holds no conviction. My mother said he was dead. She said he was gone. She lied to you. I think she believed she was protecting you. The bankruptcy destroyed him, Lucas. Your father lost his company, his reputation, everything. Your mother was probably terrified you wouldn't survive. So she left him and she told the court he was unstable. And instead of fighting for custody and dragging you through a nasty court battle, Robert let you go. He believed you'd have a better life without him. Lucas's eyes fill with tears. So all those years he was alive. He was out there somewhere, and I thought he was dead. He knew you thought that. When he was dying, he specifically requested you not be contacted. He said it was better for you to remember him as someone who abandoned you than to burden you with a deathbed reconciliation. That is Lucas's voice breaks. That is the most stubborn, selfless, idiotic thing I have ever heard. Yes, I agree. It's exactly the kind of thing Robert would do, put everyone else's well-being above his own, even when it hurt. We sit in silence for a long moment. The restaurant buzzes with the normal dinners of other people dinners that don't involve revelations about long-dead fathers who weren't actually dead as long as you believed. Did he ever talk about me? Lucas asks finally, his voice small and childlike. I choose my words carefully, wanting to tell him the truth without adding to the pain of Robert's absence. He told me once that he had one great regret in his life, that his son grew up believing he was abandoned, when in fact he was forced away. He said you were the one person he had failed, and you didn't deserve to be failed. I pause, remembering Robert's exact words, spoken on a random late night in the lab. He said there wasn't a day that went by that he didn't wonder what kind of man you were becoming, and hope that you were becoming a better one than him. Lucas closes his eyes, tears streaming down his face. I spent 15 years hating him for leaving, and he never really left at all. No, he was forced away, and then he tried to make peace with it. by teaching someone else's daughter the things he couldn't teach his own son. The understanding settles between us a third presence at the table. Our connection isn't just circumstance or business, or even the strange coincidence of meeting at a bus station 15 years ago. We are connected by Robert, by the different ways he shaped us, by the void his absence left in our lives. Tell me about him, Lucas says. Tell me everything. I have memories from before I was 12, but they're fragmented. I want to know who he became after. So I tell him about finding Robert in the lab at 2 a.m., about the way he taught by asking questions, instead of giving answers, about his infinite patience with my mistakes, and his genuine joy when I understood something new. Lucas shares childhood memories, weekend projects, building solar ovens in the back garden, bedtime stories about scientists who changed the world, the way Robert would explain complex concepts using whatever was at hand, turning dinner into a physics lesson. Sitting there with cold wine and untouched pasta, we realize we are both Robert's children in the ways that truly matter. One by blood, the other by choice, both irrevocably shaped by his wisdom and his absence. He left me patents, I say, technology that became the foundation of everything I've built. He left me the knowledge of who I could become. Lucas replies, even in his absence, even through the lies I believed about him, he taught me that how you respond to a catastrophe defines you more than the catastrophe itself. Maybe that's the better inheritance. An idea crystallizes between us, unspoken but understood. The merger, I say slowly. We should honor him. Lucas finishes. Not solar dynamics, not read tech, something new, something that represents what he really stood for. Read innovations, say in unison, and then smile at the synchronicity. We spend the rest of the evening planning not just a company but a legacy. Read Innovations will combine our technologies and networks, yes, but it will also include a scholarship program for young people from broken homes. Young people who need someone to believe in them the way Robert believed in us both. We will teach them that family is something you build, not something you're born into. That failure isn't permanent unless you stop trying. That the best revenge on those who would make you small is to become undeniably excellent. We were raised by different ghosts of the same man, and now we will build something that finally lays those ghosts to rest. Lucas and I spend weeks planning Read Innovations, sketching out not just a corporate structure, but a vision that honors Robert's belief in transformation over destruction. During one of our planning sessions, my assistant interrupts with a message I wasn't expecting. Emily has checked herself into a rehabilitation facility and wants me to know she will be unreachable for at least 90 days. The facility is called Meadowbrook Recovery Center, one of the most respected programs in the country for complex trauma and depression. It's not the kind of place you go for a social media break or a celebrity detox. It's the kind of place you go when you are genuinely broken and ready for the hard work of putting yourself back together. 3 months pass. I sometimes think about Emily, wondering if she's really putting in the work or if this is just another performance, another way to rehabilitate her public image. I've learned not to trust easy transformations. Real change is glacial, painful, often invisible until it suddenly becomes undeniable. Then I receive a handwritten letter on plain paper postmarked from Meadowbrook. Emily's handwriting, but sloppier than her usual perfect script, as if it was written quickly or with a trembling hand. Dear Elise, I've been here for 90 days. They've finally let me write to people on the outside, and you were the first person I wanted to contact. I'm not asking you to visit. I have no right to ask you for anything, but if you're willing to come, I would like to see you. There are things I need to say in person, not in writing. If you don't come, I understand. Emily. No performance, no manipulation, just a simple request with space for me to refuse. I call the clinic and arrange a visit for the following Saturday. Meadowbrook is situated in the Berkshires, a collection of elegant buildings that feel more like a university campus than a treatment centre. I check in at the front desk, surrender my phone as requested, and I'm led to a visitor's room that feels purposefully institutional basic furniture, fluorescent lights, bad coffee on a side table. They don't want this space to feel comfortable. They want it to feel real. 10 minutes later, Emily walks in, escorted by a staff member who gives me a nod and then sits in the corner present, but unintrusive. For a moment, I don't recognize my sister. She's wearing basic jeans and a sweatshirt. No makeup hair in a simple ponytail. No jewelry, no designer labels, nothing to signal status or carefully curated choices. She looks younger somehow and more fragile, but also more substantial, as if there is actually a person there, instead of just a performance of a person. "Thank you for coming," Emily says. Her voice is different, lower, less rehearsed, with a slight tremor that suggests genuine nerves instead of strategic vulnerability. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't," I admit. "I've seen you perform contrition before." "I know. That's fair." She takes a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly on the table. "I can't apologize enough times to make a difference. I know words don't fix what I did to you, what I participated in, what I allowed. But I need you to know that I get it now. I really get it, not just intellectually, but in my bones." She pauses, gathering her thoughts or her courage. I'm not sure which. "I wasn't just cruel to you. I was complicit in a system designed to destroy you. I watched you suffer and I did nothing. More than nothing, I benefited from your suffering. Every time I was praised for being the good daughter, it was because you were the bad one in comparison. Every opportunity I was given was taken from you, and I knew it on some level. I always knew. And I let it happen because it benefited me." Tears are streaming down her face now, but she doesn't wipe them away or try to make her crying attractive. She just lets them fall. "The therapists here diagnosed me with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, from childhood emotional abuse. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought I was the favorite. So how could I be abused? But they explained that being the golden child is a form of abuse. I was never allowed to be a real person. I was a doll. They dressed me up and paraded me around. Every decision was made for me. Every word I said in public was rehearsed. I was smothered by expectations while you were starved of them. We were both destroyed, just in different ways." I feel something shift in my chest. I've spent so long seeing Emily as the villain of my childhood. I never considered she might also be a victim, just of a different kind. "The first 30 days here were hell," she continues. "No phones, no social media, no contact with the outside world, no way to measure my worth by likes or comments or follow counts. I had to face this terrifying question. Who is Emily Turner when no one is watching?" And the answer was, I had no idea. I had spent 35 years performing, and I didn't know if there was anything beneath the performance. She reaches across the table, not to touch me, but to push a thick stack of papers towards me. It's a simply bound manuscript titled "The Gilded Cage, Growing Up Golden in a Toxic Family." I've been writing it in therapy. It's about being the golden child, about how being favored can hollow you out just as much as being rejected. About how conditional love destroys you whether you meet the conditions or not. My therapist says I need to make amends with actions, not just words. So this is one of my actions. Maybe it will help someone else understand that what looks like privilege can actually be a prison. I look at the manuscript, but I don't pick it up yet. The second thing I'm doing, Emily continues, is donating what's left of my savings, £47,000, all I have left, after paying for this program to a domestic abuse shelter in our mother's name. It's not much, but it's all I have. I'm not doing it for a tax credit or PR. I'm doing it because our mother spent 30 years being abused, and I watched it happen and did nothing. This is me doing something even if it's 30 years too late. Finally, I speak. Why now? Why not 5 or 10 or 15 years ago? Emily looks me directly in the eye. Because I wasn't ready. Because I was too comfortable in my cage to see it was a cage. Because hitting rock bottom was the only thing that could shatter my performance. I lost everything, Elise. My engagement, my career, my reputation, my illusion of an identity. And losing it all was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to ask who I really am and who I want to be. I look at my sister, really look at her, and I see something I've never seen before: authenticity. She's not performing remorse or angling for forgiveness. She's just being honest about her failings and her attempts to be better. I accept your apology, I say slowly. But Emily, you need to understand something. We can't have the relationship we never had. We can't suddenly become close sisters who share secrets and inside jokes. Too much has happened. Too much pain has been caused, but we can have a relationship based on truth instead of performance. We can be two people who share DNA and trauma and are trying to become better versions of ourselves. Emily nods, the tears now flowing freely. That's more than I deserve. It's not about deserving, I reply, realizing I'm echoing what I learned from Robert, from my own journey. It's about choosing who we want to be from this day forward. We can't undo the past, either of us, but we can decide what happens next. The staff member glances at the clock, signaling our time is almost up. Before I go, I do something I haven't done since we were very small children, before the hierarchy of golden child and scapegoat was fully established. I stand up, walk around the table, and I hug my sister. It's awkward. Our bodies don't fit together the way sisters' bodies should after years of closeness. It's brief, lasting only a few seconds, but it's real. It's not a performance for anyone else. It's just two traumatized people acknowledging each other's humanity. As I pull away, Emily whispers, "Thank you for not giving up on the possibility that I could change." I don't reply with words. I just squeeze her hand once and let go. The staff member escorts me back to the front desk. I retrieve my phone and walk to my car. But I sit in the car park for a long time before I start the engine. I think about Emily in that institutional visitors room, stripped of all the armor she's worn for 35 years, trying to figure out who exists underneath it. I think about how courage can look like weakness when it involves admitting you were wrong. I think about how some of the strongest people are the ones who were completely broken and chose to rebuild themselves into something honest instead of something beautiful. When I finally drive away, I realize that the silence Emily and I shared at the end of our visit was different from any silence we had ever shared before. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't performance. It wasn't loaded with resentment or unspoken calculations. For the first time in years, the silence between us felt like peace, not punishment or performance, but a real, fragile peace. 6 months have passed since that visit to Meadowbrook. Emily completes her program and is discharged to outpatient care. I hear from my mother that she's living in a modest flat in Hartford, working at a women's shelter and going to therapy twice a week. She doesn't contact me, respecting the boundaries we set. I appreciate it more than she probably knows. Real change doesn't need constant validation. Lucas and I are in the final stretch of launching Reed Innovations when my phone rings at 7 p.m. on a Friday. Emily's name flashes on the screen. My first instinct is concern. She would only call if it was important. Elise, don't go to your car tonight. Her voice is urgent, breathless. Stay in your office. Lock the door. I'm serious. Emily. What is it Arthur Shen, the investor you outbid last year? He's planning to have you abducted tonight when you leave your office. I overheard his daughter talking about it in my therapy group. She didn't know I was your sister. Elise, they're waiting in your car park right now. My blood runs cold. Arthur Shen lost £50 million when I won a clean energy contract he'd been pursuing. He's the kind of man who takes business losses as personal insults. I had him on a periodic security watch, but nothing had suggested he would resort to violence. How sure are you? I ask, already pulling up my security system on my computer. I'm so sure I'm in your lobby right now. Security wouldn't let me up without calling you first. I tell security to send her up immediately. While I wait, I call my head of security. Check parking level B2. Look for unauthorized vehicles, any vehicle that has been stationary for more than an hour. Then I call Lucas. Come to my office now. I'll explain when you get here. Emily bursts through my office door at 8:30. Her face flushed from running. She's wearing her women's shelter uniform, simple scrubs, comfortable shoes, her hair pulled back practically. Not a trace of the Instagram influencer remains. You can't leave the building tonight, she says immediately. Rebecca Shen Arthur's daughter was on the phone during our therapy group break. I heard her say her dad had hired guys to grab you when you left work. She said the plan was to scare you, maybe even hold you for ransom. She sounded excited about it, like it was justice. I'm already engaging lockdown protocols on my computer. How did you get these details? After therapy. I pretended to be sympathetic and asked her casual questions about her dad's financial troubles. She didn't know who I was, so she just unloaded. Said her dad was paying guys to teach me a lesson tonight when I left around 9. Those were her exact words. My head of security calls back. Ms. Reed. We have a situation. A white van on level B2 with 3 occupants. They've been parked there for 3 hours. No valid parking permit. When our cameras zoomed in, one of them appeared to be holding what could be a firearm. Call the police immediately, I say. Full lockdown. No one in or out until the NYPD arrives. I hang up and look at Emily, who is standing in my office. Her expression a mixture of terrified and determined. You came here yourself, I say. You could have just called. Your phone was going to voicemail. You were in back-to-back meetings all afternoon. I saw your calendar when your assistant tried to reach you. I texted. I called Lucas, but I had to be sure you knew. And the only way to be sure was to come here. The building's lockdown alarm begins to sound not loud, but insistent. Through my office window, I can see employees on other floors with confused expressions checking their phones for emergency alerts. Lucas arrives out of breath, and Emily quickly brings him up to speed. We wait. The silence in my office is tense, but not uncomfortable. Emily is sitting in one of my chairs, her hands clasped tightly, her knee bouncing with nervous energy. Lucas stands by the window watching the street below for signs of the police. I know I can't undo the past, Emily says, suddenly breaking the silence. But when I heard Rebecca talking about hurting you, I didn't think. I just knew I couldn't let that happen. I look at my sister, this woman I've spent most of my life resenting, and who has spent most of her life being complicit in my suffering. You came to warn me. You put yourself at risk. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Emily says firmly. You saved me from drowning when we were kids. You jumped in, pulled me out, and breathed life back into my lungs. I've owed you my life for 25 years. Tonight, I finally get to start paying that debt back. Police sirens cut through the night air. From my window, we see 4 police cars and an unmarked vehicle pull up to the building. My head of security calls to confirm they are coordinating access to the garage. The arrest is swift. Security footage shows police surrounding the van, ordering the men out at gunpoint. All three surrender without a fight. A search of the van turns up zip ties, duct tape, and 2 firearms. This wasn't a scare tactic, it was a planned kidnapping. Arthur Shen was arrested at his home within the hour. By morning, the story is everywhere. Billionaire rivalry turns criminal. Investor arrested in conspiracy to kidnap tech CEO. But buried in most of the articles is a detail that goes viral on social media. Turner was alerted by her estranged sister, Emily Turner, who overheard the plot in a therapy group and risked her own safety to intervene. The comments shift from the vicious mockery Emily endured months ago to something approaching redemption. She saved her sister's life. Actions speak louder than words. Everyone deserves a second chance. Emily doesn't respond to any of it. She has learned that external validation is empty. What matters is what she did when the moment came. She chose her sister over her fear. That night, after the police have taken our statements and the building has been released from lockdown, I ask Emily to stay while I finish some work. We sit in my office in a comfortable silence, me reviewing emails, her reading a book she pulled from her bag. When I finally finish, I say, "You could have just called. You didn't have to come in person." Emily looks up and her smile is sad but genuine. "Yes, I did. You needed to see me take a risk for you. Words are cheap, Elise. I needed you to see actions. I needed to prove to both of us that I'm capable of choosing what's right over what's easy." A year later, I'm standing in a community centre in Hartford, watching the organised chaos unfold around me. It's Christmas Day, but it's nothing like the formal, hierarchical dinner of the year before. The space is packed with 200 people employees, from Solar Dynamics scholarship recipients, from the Reed Turner Foundation, residents from the women's shelter where Emily works, and family. My mother is in the kitchen with the shelter residents, laughing at something one of them said, looking more relaxed than I have ever seen her. My father is sitting at a table with 3 teenagers from our scholarship program, listening more than he talks, for perhaps the first time in his life. It's part of his court-ordered community service, but I think he's actually learning something. Emily is setting tables with Lucas. The two of them have developed an unexpected friendship built on their shared survival of Turner family dysfunction. They're laughing about something. And it strikes me how much lighter Emily seems, not performing lightness, but actually feeling it. There are no assigned seats, no place cards, no hierarchy. People sit where they want. I end up at a table with my mother, Emily Lucas, and 3 scholarship kids, who remind me so much of my younger self, it hurts. One of them, a girl named Maria, tells me about her solar panel project for the science fair. I remember being her age, dreaming of escaping reality through innovation. And I realize this is what we're giving these kids, not just money, but the knowledge that their minds are valuable. Before we eat, I stand up to speak. I haven't prepared a speech. This isn't that kind of event. A year ago I begin, and the room gradually falls silent. I came to a family dinner pretending to be someone I wasn't. Tonight, everyone here is exactly who they are. Some of us are related by blood, some by choice, some just by the circumstances that brought us together. But we're all here because we decided that the past doesn't have to dictate the future. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being real. As everyone eats and talks and laughs, I look around the room and I feel something I haven't felt in years. Not happiness. That's too simple, too shallow for what this is. Contentment. The deep-seated knowledge that I've built something that matters, that I've broken cycles that needed to be broken, that I've created a space for imperfect people to become better versions of themselves, myself included. My mother catches my eye across the table and smiles. Emily is talking to one of the shelter residents about job applications. Lucas is explaining solar technology to the teenagers with the same patience Robert once showed me. My father is listening quietly, a thoughtful expression on his face I've never seen before. This isn't the family I was born into. It's the family I built, messy, imperfect, still a work in progress, but real. Finally, completely real. Forgiveness didn't heal the past, but it opened up a future I never imagined was possible, one built on truth instead of performance. 18 months after that Christmas day, I'm standing in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, watching 500 people celebrate something I never thought I would build. The annual Reed Turner Foundation Gala has become one of the hottest tickets on the philanthropic calendar. Not for the celebrities or the expensive champagne, but for what it represents. Transformation through education, healing through opportunity. Proof that where you start doesn't have to determine where you finish. The foundation has awarded £15 million in scholarships to 500 students, all from families with a history of abuse, neglect, or dysfunction. But the money is just the beginning. We provide mentorship therapy, job placement assistance, and community. I personally mentor 20 students, meeting them monthly for coffee or lunch, answering late-night texts about university applications and interview anxiety. One of them, Maria, now 19, and studying environmental engineering, told me during one of our sessions, "My dad used to say I was worthless, that girls didn't need an education. Your story taught me that dads can be wrong." I see myself in her fierce determination, and I'm grateful she doesn't have to spend 15 years proving her worth to herself the way I did. Tonight, Lucas is serving as the gala's co-chair, delivering a speech about second chances that has the room on its feet for a standing ovation. Emily is working behind the scenes, coordinating logistics, and has discovered she has a genuine talent for event planning and organization when she's not performing for a camera. My mother volunteers with the Foundation's family counseling program, sharing her story with other domestic abuse survivors and helping them find the courage she found too late. Even my father, sober for 2 years now, gives quarterly talks at men's accountability programs about how ego and insecurity can poison everything you touch. None of it is perfect. Our relationships are still complicated, still require careful navigation, but we are trying. And in the end, trying is what matters. The merger between Solar Dynamics and Reed Tech was completed. Reed Innovations is now valued at £5.8 billion, but the numbers are less interesting than what we're actually doing. Installing solar panels on 5,000 schools in underserved communities, creating a job training program for ex-offenders, giving them skills and second chances in a concrete way. Lucas serves as co-CEO, while I remain CEO, and our partnership works because it's built on mutual respect and a shared mission, not romance. The media constantly tries to spin a love story. Billionaire power couple appears as a headline at least once a month, but we shoot it down every time. We are partners in the way that matters most, shared values, a mutual commitment to building something meaningful that will outlast us both. Forbes ran a cover story last month titled, "The Company Built on Forgiveness: How Two CEOs Turned Family Trauma into Corporate Innovation." The article quotes Lucas saying something that moved me to tears when I read it. Elise taught me that success isn't about defeating your enemies. It's about making them irrelevant by building something they can't comprehend. On a personal level, I've changed in ways I didn't expect. I started therapy 2 years ago, not because I'm broken, but because even strong people deserve support in processing their stories. Doctor Quinn helps me understand that healing isn't linear, that some days I will still feel like that 22-year-old with a bin bag of clothes. And that's okay. That growing up doesn't erase the past, it just gives us better tools to deal with it. I'm dating casually, no rush, no pressure. Sarah Shen is a marine biologist who studies octopus intelligence and has never read a business article in her life. She once told me, "I like you because you're genuinely curious about cephalopods." Anyone who can run a 1 billion-pound company and still get excited about the problem-solving abilities of an octopus is someone worth knowing. We go to aquariums and talk about things that have nothing to do with solar panels or quarterly returns. And it's exactly what I need. I've reconnected with friends from Cambridge, people who knew me when I was cleaning labs and surviving on instant noodles. They celebrate my success without envy and remind me of who I was before the empire, before the foundation, when I was just a girl trying to prove she was worth more than £40. I host monthly dinners at my flat, informal gatherings where we talk about books, science, politics, and life. No networking, no performance, just genuine connection. To my surprise, I've taken up painting. I discovered it by accident at a team-building retreat. I've realized I'm terrible at it, and that's exactly why I love it. It's the first thing I've done in decades purely for pleasure, not for achievement. My flat is now hung with several of my own abstract paintings, vibrant, chaotic, and emotionally honest. When Lucas visited and saw them, he stared for a long moment and said, "These look like feeling." I replied, "That's because they are." He understood immediately after a childhood spent performing emotions. We didn't feel hiding the ones we did. There's something liberating about making art that is nothing more than honest feelings on a canvas. Standing at this gala, watching the scholarship recipients share their stories, seeing my family contribute in their own imperfect ways, hearing Lucas talk about transformation, I realized the empire I built was never really about power. It was about proving that pain could be transformed into light, and that success isn't measured in pounds, but in lives changed. 2 years after that first revelation, Christmas has become something else entirely. This year I'm hosting at my flat, not the penthouse I once thought I needed, but a spacious, comfortable place in the village that actually feels like home. 20 people are crammed into my living and dining room, an eclectic mix that would have horrified the Turners of my childhood. My parents separated but cordial. Emily and her boyfriend Marcus, a therapist she met at a support group who sees her clearly and loves what he sees. Lucas and his Aunt Helen, the elderly woman who raised him after his mother's death. 3 scholarship recipients who remind me daily why this work matters. Sarah, who is explaining octopus camouflage to anyone who will listen, and Robert Reed's widow, Margaret, whom I tracked down last year and who has become an unexpected friend. The flat is crowded, noisy, imperfect. People have brought dishes that don't quite go together. 3 different potato recipes, no green vegetables. 2 pumpkin pies. Someone has spilled wine on my rug. Emily's boyfriend has accidentally knocked over a glass, which shattered spectacularly. But instead of tension, there is laughter. Instead of performance, there is presence. My father helps me in the kitchen, and the awkwardness between us is still palpable. We don't have a good relationship. We probably never will, but he's trying. And that's something. He's been sober for 18 months, going to his meetings, doing his volunteer work. He looks healthier than I've seen him in decades. "I'm proud of you," he says quietly, handing me a serving platter. I know I have no right to say it, but I am. I pause, considering my response. 2 years ago, I would have thrown those words back in his face. Now I just speak the truth. "Thank you. But I need you to understand, I didn't build this for your pride. I built it in spite of your lack of it." He nods, accepting this. I know. That's why it's important I say it anyway. After everyone has gone, after the dishes are done, and Sarah has gone home and the flat is quiet again, I sit down in my study and I start to write a letter. Not to send, but to keep. A letter to the girl I was at 22, sitting alone in that bus station at 2:47 a.m. with £40 and a bin bag of my belongings. Dear Elise, at 22, you are sitting in the dark right now, wondering if leaving was a catastrophic mistake. You are terrified, alone, convinced you have ruined your life. I am writing to you from 15 years in your future to tell you you didn't ruin anything. You saved everything. The years ahead will be brutal. You will work until exhaustion becomes your normal state. You will survive on instant noodles and determination. You will cry yourself to sleep, wondering if you're enough. But here is the truth you can't see yet. You are already enough. You always were. The people who couldn't see your value were measuring with broken instruments. You will meet Robert Reed, who will teach you that failure is just refusing to get back up. You will build an empire, yes, but more importantly, you will build a self. You will learn that validation from people who never valued you is worthless. You will forgive the unforgivable not for them, but because you deserve peace. You will discover that mercy is power, that success is measured in lives changed, and that the best revenge is to become someone who doesn't need it. The family that rejected you will come back to you broken, and you will give them something they never gave you a chance to grow. Not because they deserve it, but because breaking cycles requires someone brave enough to choose differently. So sit on that cold bench, wait for the bus, take the scholarship, build the impossible life, and know that 15 years from now, you will be exactly where you were always meant to be. With love, Elise, at 37. I fold the letter and put it in my desk drawer next to the £40 check I never cashed, the one my father threw at my feet. These artifacts of my origin story, preserved not for bitterness, but for honesty about where I began. From the living room, I hear voices, Sarah and Emily, talking about something, their laughter genuine, Lucas showing Margaret photos on his phone. My mother's voice relaxed in a way it never was during my childhood. Normal sounds, family sounds. It's not perfect, but it's real. I stand in the doorway of my study, literally between two spaces, my private refuge on one side, communal life on the other. I have spent so much of my life in doorways, stuck between worlds, between who I was and who I am becoming. But tonight I'm not stuck. I'm choosing one foot in solitude, one foot in connection. Both parts of me integrated and accepted. I take a deep breath, and I step forward into the light, and the noise, and the imperfect beauty of the family I chose. Someone calls my name. I answer. The door to my study remains open behind me, not because I need to retreat, but because I'm no longer afraid of where I've been. The past is just the past now, not a prison or a wound, just the foundation for everything I've built. The poor, naive daughter never returned. The woman she became finally came home, and home stopped being a place and became a choice she made every day. And that's where Elise's story brings us today. From a daughter who was worth £40 to a woman who built a £3.2 billion empire. But more importantly, a woman who learned that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in broken cycles, transformed lives, and the courage to choose mercy over revenge. Her journey reminds us that the families who reject us don't get to define us. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is prove them wrong by becoming exactly who we were always meant to be. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt underestimated by family or the people who should have believed in you? How did you prove them wrong? Or are you still on that journey? Share your story in the comments below, because your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if Elise's story touched you, if it reminded you that your worth is not determined by anyone else's opinion, Please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories of resilience, redemption, and the incredible strength it takes to forgive without forgetting. Thank you for your time. And remember, you are never poor in the things that truly matter. I'll see you in the next story.